Chapter 1660. I clearly remember that when the words Luo Qingshan came from the walkie-talkie, my heart inexplicably jumped. It was extremely strong. That kind of uncontrollable trembling of my fingertips and the feeling of my heart beating with all its might, I still remember it clearly. But she just smiled and rushed out without a care. I could almost hear the sound of her sniper being loaded, and her tone was very relaxed as she aimed at the enemy. At that moment, it was as if my head was buzzing and everything in front of me became unimportant. I just wanted to use the fastest time to get to her side and protect her. That was the first time I ran so crazily, and the rain of bullets around me was not enough to attract my attention. When I hugged her tightly, I was really relieved. It turned out that in just one day, her position in my heart had become so important. I even clearly felt that I would rather lose my life than let her suffer any harm. Later, I was injured. She had never thought that her medical skills would be so good as well, even though she had such great ideas. My life was saved by her. In the haze, I could still hear her calm and beautiful voice. Although there was a slight tremble in that voice, I know that I made her worry. But that feeling of being worried made me feel inexplicably happy. Sometimes I would think that if I kept getting hurt, then she would always be by my side. Because when you leave, I will especially miss you. I used the fastest speed to take care of things in the White Cliff United Nations and immediately flew back to the country. I wanted to find you directly, but I suddenly heard that you were called to a meeting by some of the higher-ups of Glory World. This kind of scene where a beauty needs a hero, I naturally had to appear in a special way. For example, the only heir of Glory World Corporation. For example, the young master they were talking about. When I saw your surprised expression, I felt very satisfied. When those annoying people were aggressive, you didn't even need to speak because I alone was enough to deal with them. I suddenly felt that power and influence could really protect the people around you. At least, you just needed to stand by my side. Those messed up people, I would take care of them. Later, I found out that the man called Jiang Xija who spoke at the meeting was her ex-boyfriend. He's really not a good man. After I found out, I used a rather extreme method to ask a friend of mine to hack into his computer. Those pictures of women were instantly exposed. After all, he was a popular little fresh meat. Any random news agency would be able to ruin his reputation in an instant. In fact, I did the same. I just didn't let her know. After all, I hoped that in her eyes, I would always be the righteous Major Sure who wouldn't resort to underhanded means. It's just that if it's for her, I could be less righteous. And all of this had become so uncertain because of a single operation. That was the most desperate time of my life. Surviving became my only belief, but it was so difficult to do so. The horror of an avalanche is not something a normal person can imagine. Our Silver Soul Troop once spent half a month in a cave under the thick snow. They ate the worms that were called moths in the snow, and drank the water of the snow that was melted by all means. But even so, we persevered. Chapter 1661. Su Chingyin said that she had never seen me this stubborn before. This was the first time. For me, this was indeed the first time. Because I owe you 3 promises, I will definitely keep them. When I returned to the human world, I couldn't help crying under the sun. This was probably the best way to cry tears of joy. I'm finally back. Yet, you're still standing in the most dazzling position. You're so beautiful. At first, I was very nervous. On the way to the concert, I was wondering if I should believe you in front of everyone. But whenever I think of the way you looked at me, I would have an inexplicable confidence. You like me, I believe that I have a very important place in your heart. Because on the way to the snow mountain, I kept dreaming of you. I dreamed that you were holding a big doll in a daze. I dreamed that you liked to light up everything at home and then hide in bed. I felt sorry for you, and when I wanted to hug you, I would wake up in the cold night. There was only snow around me, and you weren't there. Facing the despair of being in a desert, I suddenly felt that we were all forgotten by the world, forgotten by God. Good that I came back. A bouquet of dandelions was probably the best way to reunite us. No one could understand how excited I was when I saw you again. She stood where she was, trembling with fear, her eyes red. And I, as long as I did everything I could to rush to you and hold you in my arms. At a concert with 100,000 people, you stood in front of me in a white wedding dress. This illusion made me feel that this was our wedding and every fan here was witnessing our happiness. I wanted to slowly walk to her, but I suddenly received someone running from the stage. Thousands of thoughts spread from the bottom of my heart, and an inexplicable feeling poured into my heart layer by layer. Good, I persevered. Good, I came back. When I first came back, she would call me in the middle of the night to make sure I was really back. During that time, I could feel her extreme uneasiness, but she suppressed it and didn't let herself show it. It was then that I understood that I wasn't the only one who suffered that year. She was the same. I would turn my phone to the loudest before going to bed and place it closest to me so I could receive her call. The 3 promises I made to her were fulfilled and worked hard for our future. Many of my comrades came to the wedding, and she threw the bouquet to Su Changyin. Not far away, Yu Xing Fan used his remaining arm to shake his head in embarrassment. He wanted to say something, but Su Changyin had already rushed up and hugged him. At that moment, she stood beside me in her white wedding dress and smiled very happily. When we were toasting, her agent Xiao Jiu said something to me that left a deep impression on me. Ever since you left, I've never seen her smile so happily. I feel that this is what life should be like. I took a long vacation and brought her back to the city regularly. She was more excited than I had imagined, and all the way she talked about her heroic deeds at that time. Actually, she would never know. From that moment onwards, she was dazzling light's dazzling light. In the past, he always thought that the most beautiful thing in life was meeting. Chapter 1662. Everyone, welcome back to the small theater of love. At the request of the fans, we will open a small theater for everyone this year. First, we want to interview Major Sure. Are you excited to be chosen as the protagonist of 10 questions? I'm excited. My Qing system is too cute. Thinking the system likes this kind of male lead, there is no other. Thank you. Let's get to the main topic. First question. Use 4 words to describe the feeling of seeing her for the first time. It was shocking. Second question. When was the most frightening time for you? When I was in the clock tower of White Rock City. Even now, I still feel fear. That was the most frightening time of my life. Third question. Who is the person you hate the most in this world? A lot. Only if you can choose one. No, there really are a lot. Then choose more. Those damn local soldiers. If they hadn't retreated, we wouldn't have been surrounded. We wouldn't have been surrounded at all. That way, we wouldn't have experienced an avalanche. And I wouldn't have left her for that long. It really is too much. Fourth question. What do you think of the supporting male lead, Jiang Xija? I never understood why my Qing's eyes were so good. How could she like that little white face? He doesn't even deserve the word love rival. The system feels that Major Sure is very handsome. Fifth question. Do you know that Su Qingyin likes you? I know. Although I found out by chance, I was excited for a long time. Because I knew that she went to a certain temple to ask for a divination, and the divination showed that I would meet my destined lover that year. I didn't tell her about this, but that year I kept myself in good shape and waited for my destined lover to appear. Damn! The system suddenly feels that Major Sure is very black-bellied. She silently patted her small chest. Why didn't she feel like he was that kind of person? Sixth question. What was the most difficult thing to do in the 1,000-mile snow mountain? Major Sure hesitated for a long time before saying, you can't fall asleep at any time because once you do, you won't be able to wake up again. That must be a very, very difficult journey. After all, not being able to sleep peacefully for more than a year is a very painful thing. It's all right. Compared to the pain of missing her, it's not worth mentioning. It's just difficult. Seventh question. You should have heard the song she sang at the concert. Are you very touched? I am very, very touched. It was because I heard that song that I knew that Sure Bei was qualified to appear in Luo Qingqian's life and wasn't replaced by anyone else. Eighth question. Do you still plan to be a soldier after marriage? I hesitated on this question for a long time, but in the end, I decided to become a soldier. I've discussed it with her, and I'll be discharged in 10 years. I will be more focused and work harder to protect my own life so that she won't worry. Ninth question. Why did you bring her back to the original white cliff base? She was the one who suggested it. Could it be that you didn't ask her why? No, because I'm afraid of my wife. 10th question, why don't you say something to her? Because I don't know if I can meet you in my next life. So I will work hard in this life to give you the best. Chapter 1663. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the chaos space. She had been in the last world for a long time, and after 10 years of fear, Serene had finally retired from the army to become the successor of the Glory World Group. And she was naturally a rich lady who slept on top of money. Actually, Serene hadn't been in the army for 10 years. It should have been around 8 years. Because Luo Qingshun always strangely appeared on the battlefield with a 98K sniper rifle, charging forward without any care. Major Sure expressed that he could completely understand Mrs. Sure's feelings of fear and made all the necessary arrangements to retire from the army. After all, bullets didn't have eyes on the battlefield. His heart couldn't take such a large impact. After retiring from the army, Serene and Luo Qingshun spent most of their time taking care of the Sure family's property. They became great philanthropists in a city, helping those pitiful children. Sure approved of their actions since Serene's mother was very serious about charity. It was like people who were in despair were blessed by the heavens, so the two of them didn't experience any storms in the future. Happy, joyful, and warm to spend one's life. Welcome back, host. Does the host want to see the scene before and after you died? No need. Dying of old age, I can accept it. She felt that she wasn't as unreasonable as before. She understood the cycle of life, knowing that some people were destined to meet and some people were destined to move forward. All right, the following is a summary of the mission. Host, please properly look over it. Name, Luo Qingshun World. Popular singer. Hello, Sir Major. Mission completion rate, 100% experience. There are currently 5 items in the spatial storage. 5-6 exquisite ring. 9-section moon whip, moon glass fan, phoenix dance sword, universal medicine box. Permanent abilities, space and time, freeze level 3, upgraded, exchange points. 8,000 plus 3,000 equals 12,000 base points. 40. The host's 29th mission panel is below. Appearance, stamina, intelligence, figure. The image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission grade, experience gained, 500. Female lead. Luo Qingshun male lead. Mo Zaichun supporting female lead. Pei Dan dance supporting male lead. Jiang Iliang mission details. Return to 10 days before the death of the female lead and obtain the love of the male lead. I suddenly feel that the system is so stingy. There's nothing but EXP for completing the quest. You are about to enter the special plane. The host will receive a big gift pack and permanent supernatural abilities. The problem is, I don't want to experience it. Sorry, host, you have no choice. Memories are being distributed. Host, please check carefully. Overwhelming memories flooded her mind. The regret and unwillingness of the original owner, as well as the stubborn love, kept crashing into her brain. To be honest, the original owner of this plane was not a good person, or even a bad person who was good at using schemes to sow discord between the supporting male and female characters. The original owner was able to choose Luo Qingshun through the bronze mirror because of her persistent love and regret. For the previous host, if she could live again, she definitely wouldn't have fallen in love with Jiang Iliang. She wished that she had never loved him. Love can make a person become dark, cruel, and not like himself. However, Luo Qingshun had some doubts about the word redo. 10 days before death was called redo. Chapter 1664. Accepting all the memories of the previous host, didn't she love and hate her? She loved her because half of her personality was like hers. Loving someone, being obsessed enough. Hating her, it wasn't hate, but there were some methods that she didn't approve of. But in the end, she received the retribution she deserved. Everyone betrayed her, and she was attacked. The previous host was a second-year high school student and was also a very popular streamer on Big Pineapple TV because she was very talented at playing games. One of the 4 great families of a city, she was childhood sweethearts with the supporting male lead Jiang Iliang. As a match, the Jiang family that Jiang Iliang belonged to was naturally a famous person. But this supporting male lead didn't love her. He couldn't compare to her at all. He had never loved her since they were young. Actually, when Jiang Iliang's figure appeared in her mind, she had thought that he was the male lead, because the feeling that he gave people was indeed dazzling. The Luo family and the Jiang family had always been friends, so the marriage between the previous host and Jiang Iliang had already been decided. This was something that the previous host looked forward to, but it was something that Jiang Iliang hated very much. In his eyes, the person he didn't love wasn't qualified to be his wife. Actually, this wasn't wrong, but for someone willing, it really was too hurtful. It was like she was trapped in a prison and she couldn't come out without Jiang Iliang's love. At that time, she thought that she still had a chance. If she worked hard, perhaps Jiang Iliang would see her. But she was wrong. When Jiang Iliang met Pei Dan Dan, he suddenly understood the true meaning of love. It was a pity that in the eyes of the previous host, that Pei Dan Dan wasn't worth mentioning at all. Not only was she born in a village, she had entered the Star Royal Academy as a top student. In the eyes of the previous host, the supporting female lead wasn't qualified to compete with her. It was a pity that this person that she didn't care about had become the only one in the heart of the person she loved the most. Pei Dan Dan was a super saintly supporting female lead. In Jiang Iliang's eyes, she was a strong, kind, smart, and beautiful girl. In the Star Royal Academy, Pei Dan Dan had always been isolated because entering the school based on her grades wasn't enough to receive everyone's approval. Of course, the one who isolated her the most was the previous host. After all, a love rival's hatred was always the greatest. But this beautiful, kind, and intelligent supporting female lead always had a flower guardian by her side. The previous host was ashamed again and again, but she couldn't make Jiang Iliang feel her love. On the contrary, he was filled with disgust. As the saying goes, the wicked will be punished by the heavens. After the original owner framed Pei Dan Dan several times, her true colors were revealed. Because Jiang Iliang stood up for Pei Dan Dan, the previous host became the target of everyone's attacks. Those sisters who used to play well with her all betrayed her and tried their best to flatter the future Jiang family. The Holy Mother naturally let them off and expressed that she didn't blame them. But Jiang Iliang, who always stayed indoors, didn't do this. Those people who had bullied Pei Dan Dan, he didn't let a single one go. Of course, this included the original owner. The last time, when the original owner was determined to perish together, she found Pei Dan Dan and tricked her into her car. Then, she slammed on the accelerator and crashed into the truck. Little did he know that she was dead. But the kind Pei Dan Dan didn't die. Although she was seriously injured, with Jiang Iliang's careful care, she finally recovered. Chapter 1665. Luo Qingshun rubbed her temples, showing that her head hurt a bit. It was the 10th day before the previous host died, which meant that she was about to become everyone's target. In her memory, her true identity was exposed because her computer was hacked and all the chat records disappeared. Then the most important thing was to go home and reformat her computer to avoid being exposed by Jiang Iliang. That would really be over in less than 2 days. This class was math, her favorite subject. After going through so many worlds, it was inevitable that she could directly write the answer without writing the process. She had already reached a high level in the medical and shooting skills she learned in the last world. Even if she didn't exchange for skills, she would still be very outstanding. After all, she didn't use a lifetime to learn, but rather several lifetimes to learn. Ding-ling. When the bell rang, she quickly packed her bag and planned on heading home. Su Man sitting behind her pushed her and whispered in her ear, "I heard that the commoner is going to the library in the afternoon, and school Hunk Jiang has a basketball game in the afternoon, so he can't go with her. This is our chance." At that moment, Luo Qingshun couldn't help shivering. She had never had this kind of identity before, so she wasn't used to it at all. This Su Man was one of the people who pushed her down a few days later. Actually, to be honest, wasn't wrong to say that Su Man was the instigator of all these things, because many of the plans to bully Pei Dan Dan were thought by her. Although the previous host hated Pei Dan Dan, she came from a rich family after all, so she disdained using tricks at first. But then she found that Pei Dan Dan would be laughed at, so she did this. Only, as long as there was Jiang Iliang. No matter how she tried to harm Pei Dan Dan, there was no effect at all, because doing this would only make Jiang Iliang like her more. A boy like Jiang Iliang always liked a strong and protected girl. MMP. Thinking of this, Luo Qingshun couldn't help calling the previous host an idiot. Capturing a male god, it really was clumsy. I won't go today. I still have something to do and want to go home early. Luo Qingshun put on her LV customized bag and walked out of the classroom. In her memories, today was the day the previous host became the target of public criticism. In the library, Jiang Iliang would definitely go, because in another world, Jiang Iliang had come and pushed the previous host away in front of everyone. Then he gently picked up the stubborn Pei Dan Dan on the ground and left the library with a gentle look. That night, the chat records of the original host's plan to frame Pei Dan Dan were posted on the Star Kingdom Academy's campus network. At this point, the original owner had almost no chance to make a comeback. Although the previous host didn't know which hacker had hacked her computer, she guessed that it should have been Jiang Iliang. Both the host and the original owner guessed wrong. The system's voice suddenly rang in her mind, giving her a fright. It wasn't Jiang Iliang. This shouldn't be the case. According to the original host's social status in a city, there shouldn't be any passers-by who would dare to hack her computer. Moreover, other than Pei Dan Dan, she didn't have any enmity with anyone. Wait a minute. Could it be the host guessed right? The person who hacked into the original host's computer was Pei Dan Dan. Have you forgotten that she's a top student? Chapter 1666. Suman was a bit confused as she looked at her back. She narrowed her eyes and muttered, "Did this person eat the wrong medicine today?" She was in a bad mood. Luo Qingshun always cared about Pei Dan Dan's matters before. What was wrong with her today? She was a bit annoyed. She didn't want to see Pei Dan Dan appear in front of Jiang Iliang. School hunk Jiang was so good-looking, dazzling, and outstanding. Why would he be with a commoner? Even if it was Luo Qingshun who was her childhood friend, she was only jealous and didn't hate her. After all, with her family background, she was a match for school hunk Jiang. She couldn't say anything in this situation, but she did hate that commoner Pei Dan Dan from the bottom of her heart. When it was time for lunch, Luo Qingshun was planning on leaving the school through the back door. She never thought that when she passed by the library, she would bump into Jiang Iliang and Pei Dan Dan. Sure enough, in this world, it was always the case that enemies were bound to meet. Under the cherry blossom tree, there was a night breeze. The girl gave a faint smile to the boy, just like the prince and Cinderella in the fairy tale. But this beautiful scene, when Jiang Iliang saw Luo Qingshun, his face turned dark. Pei Dan Dan beside him was stunned before pulling on his sleeve. "Let's go to the library." Actually, Pei Dan Dan was very clear that no matter what, Luo Qingshun was Jiang Iliang's fiancé in name. She was very clear on her identity and knew that she should avoid suspicion. "What are you afraid of? Could it be that this road was opened by her family?" Jiang Iliang gave a cold snort as his eyes filled with hostility. Luo Qingshun gave a shrug and stuck out her chest, walking past them with her hands in her pocket. Jiang Iliang was stunned as a confused look appeared in his dark eyes. He looked at Luo Qingshun, who was about to walk past him, and said, "What are you doing here? Don't think that I don't know your tricks. Stay away from Dan Dan, otherwise." "Yeah, I say this, classmate." Luo Qingshun looked at him with a cold gaze. "Could it be that this road was opened by you?" After going through so much, he had grown a lot. At the very least, she had never been at a disadvantage when it came to insulting others. She didn't agree with some of the things that the previous host did, but that didn't mean that this so-called infatuated man and resentful woman had the qualifications to judge her. Bao Bao had just arrived and was unfamiliar with this place. However, when Bao Bao was insulted the moment he arrived, Bao Bao would get angry and have a little mood swings. Sure enough, her response stunned the two people beside her. Most of the time, the original owner would say something like this: "Iliang, let's go to the movies tonight. When are you coming back?" "Iliang, I miss you." Don't be with her. She's not good enough for you. Ew. You commoner vixen. You're seducing Ilyang again. I'll kill you. She was always the one who was pushed to the ground. She was like a clown, using all her love in exchange for endless humiliation time and time again. If there was a contrast, just based on their expressions, Luo Qingchen knew that her words would make them feel a bit helpless. Because Jiang Ilyang didn't say anything and Pei Dan Dan didn't say anything. Just like that, she wobbled out of their sight and walked towards the back door. She was a bit strange today. Pei Dan Dan's eyes trembled as she said in a soft voice, "Did you say something to her?" Chapter 1667. I don't have time to talk to her. Jiang Ilyang narrowed his eyes as a faint emotion flashed in them. In the 17 years since they were young, she had never talked to him like this before. This was her first time. She suddenly felt that this feeling was a bit strange, very strange. Luo Qingchen didn't go to class in the afternoon because she was seriously working on her computer at home. The previous host really was a careless person, putting all the obvious evidence on the table and not guarding against it at all. She couldn't help thinking that if the person Jiang Ilyang loved the most in this world wasn't Pei Dan Dan, but her, perhaps she would also be a very kind person. This was because he could feel from her memories that she was not a truly evil person. Even when she was forced into her heart's demon and wanted Pei Dan Dan to die, she planned to die with her. If she was a truly evil person, what she cared about the most was her own life and nothing else. The previous host loved that man too much. She loved him so much that she lost her pride, her smile, and everything she should have. AI, you reap what you sow. Luo Qingchen couldn't help giving a sigh for the previous host. She took out a silver USB from her uniform and saved everything on the USB, directly reformatting the computer. She used the computer language to do complicated code operations. After all, she was at the peak of mathematics, so she was very good at setting up firewalls. If someone attacked her computer, it would steal the attacker's ID and all the information they had registered on the network. She didn't have the heart to harm others, but she had to be on guard against others. There were some things that needed to be done. Luo Qingchen insisted on this belief. If the man and woman didn't provoke her, she wouldn't stop their love in this world. After all, the previous host had done bad things to Pei Dan Dan, so even if she was kind enough to let them develop freely. But if Jiang Ilyang still wanted to attack her like this afternoon, then don't blame her for being impolite. If a person wasn't ruthless, they wouldn't be able to stand firm. She didn't come to this world to be bullied. Turning off the computer, she looked at the time, and it was already 3 in the afternoon. Tonight was the day of the original host's live broadcast. The live broadcast only showed her voice and not her face. Her ID on Big Pineapple TV was Little Fairy Ching Ching. She had a fixed team and usually specialized in competitive games. Although the original owner was very talented, she didn't have much time to play in class, so she wasn't the best. Originally, he wanted to go online and stream a few games, but after thinking about it, he called his teacher and asked for leave first. After all, truancy was a very bad thing. At the same time, in Year 2 Class A, Jiang Ilyang looked at Luo Qingchen's empty spot and couldn't help knitting his brows. It can't be that she want to cause trouble for Pei Dan Dan, right? Thinking of this, he hurriedly sent a message to Pei Dan Dan. The other party replied very quickly, and there was nothing unusual. This made Jiang Ilyang knit his brows even more. In the past, Luo Qingchen almost never skipped classes because she said that she didn't have much time to be with him and she didn't want to miss a single class. He didn't know why, but he heard her voice when she said those words. Jiang Ilyang felt his stomach churn. He really did hate her, but he didn't know when it started. He just knew that this person was very annoying. She was like a big fly that kept appearing in front of him. Chapter 1668. But now, why didn't she come to class? Did something happen? Thinking of this, Jiang Ilyang's lips curled coldly as he thought, what does it have to do with me if something happens to her? At this moment, Luo Qingchen, who he was thinking about, was taking an afternoon nap at home. It had to be said, she rarely woke up this early. It really was hard being a student, especially those who were about to take the college entrance exam. Sleep was simply a luxury. At 7:30, After eating the food prepared by the nanny, she went on Big Pineapple TV. Most of the previous host live streams were games with 5 people. Other than her, there was another girl whose game ID was Ling Luo. The remaining 3 were all boys. One of them had a very nice voice, and his game ID was Shunja. But he rarely spoke, but his skills were first class. Everyone in the fixed team was busy, so they only played together on Fridays every week. When she entered the stream, there were already many fans waiting for her. Her fans were collectively known as Chingu. Most of them were girls who gathered together. "Hello, have you eaten?" Luo Qingxun turned on her mic and said the first sentence. Her phone rang. She turned off her mic and looked at it. It wasn't a call or a text message. It was a memo that said, "Counting down to the 3rd day of Big Brother Iliang's birthday. Your big brother, Iliang, has already won the beauty. Please give up on him." Luo Qingxun said to herself before deleting the memo without any hesitation. "MMP, why are there male supporting leads everywhere in this world? Can I ask where the male lead that the previous host has never seen before is?" The system seemed to hear the deep call in her heart and replied, "The male lead is on the way. Please wait patiently, host." Damn it. The male lead is actually on the way. System, why do you want it to go back 10 days? Can't you go back 5 days? Is the host a fool? If you didn't format your computer, you would have been attacked by everyone tonight. Before the male lead appeared, you would have been attacked by everyone. The system angrily rebuked her. What you said makes a lot of sense. Sorry to disturb you." Luo Qingxun felt that she had not done anything in this plane, yet she was being criticized by others. Now even the system was criticizing her. So infuriating. Beep, 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 beep. More and more people were chatting privately in the live streaming room. Most of them were wondering what had happened to her when she suddenly turned off her microphone. Little Apple, who loves Ching Ching. Gold member, where's my Ching? Why did he disappear? Only love Ching Ching. Manager, I think I heard a phone ring just now. She must have gone to answer it. Big Wolf's Pan. Normal member, yes. Ching Xin went to answer the phone. While she was deleting the memo, the public chat was flooded with messages. At this moment, Ling Luo invited her to join the team. After a few fruitless attempts, she began to send private messages to her. Ling Luo, fight. Today, I want to become a king. Ling Luo, where is he? Ching, where did you throw your phone? Ling Luo, woo. His heart ached for the phone that had been abandoned so decisively by its owner. Luo Qingxun glanced at the messages that Ling Luo had sent her and hurriedly typed a few concise and comprehensive words on the keyboard. Little fairy Ching, invite me. In this world, the original host was a support in esports, and that Super Su Chun's position was ADC. Chapter 1669. Shunja. Ling Luo is on Challenger today? Fatty AAA, yo. Our little sister Ling Luo is already on Challenger. Little fairy Ching. Fatty, are you still embarrassing yourself in Starlight? Fatty AAA. Fatty is being humble, unlike you guys who relied on Great God to bring you up. Little fairy Ching. I don't need Great God. I'm Great God myself. After Luo Qingxun typed this on the screen, her fans flooded the screen with 666. Fatty made a funny face at her and added, Fatty AAA. Then you can swap with Shunja. You can play ADC and see if you can bring little sister Ling Luo to Challenger. TSK, another one who dissed her. Although this group of friends was the original owner's only friends in this world, she couldn't just throw herself at them when she was feeling so stifled. At this time, the game entered the selection interface. Luo Qingxun didn't say anything and chose an ADC miss and locked onto her in minutes. The young man with the ID Shun was stunned. He didn't know why the other party gave him a different feeling today. Ling Luo. Ching, are you kidding me? You're not here to cheat me on my promotion match, right? Equals? Smiley face little fairy Ching. If you're my MVP, remember to give me a Christmas present. I want a Christmas tree. The young man on the other end of the computer looked relieved when he saw this sentence. He chuckled unconsciously and silently chose a support hero. This kind of position swap felt pretty good. In a total of 5 matches, Luo Qingshan played ADC, long-range physical damage dealer, for 5 matches. Every match she played was above 40% damage, and she was MVP best for every match. This kind of data made Fatty, who was still dissing her, and Ling Luo, who was still questioning her, look at her in a new light. Shunjia, who played support for her 5 times, silently gave her a thumbs up. The young man on the other side of the computer couldn't help but smile. He thought she was only good at support, but he didn't expect her to be so good at ADC. Fatty AAA F***CK. Are you Ching Ching? Say something quickly. Little fairy Ching Ching. Don't you know my broadcaster number? Come take a look. Ling Luo Guru. Please accept my kneeling. So all this time, we have been drowning out your talent. Gugu. I finally believe something now. Gugu, who had not spoken for a long time, typed a line of words. Little fairy Ching Ching. What? Gugu. In the cycle of reincarnation, gold will always shine. It's just that it's not the right time yet. In fact, Luo Qingshan's live broadcast room had been flooded with various gifts, and her popularity was also increasing. Even in the last round, her live stream room had already reached the recommended position on the homepage. It had to be said that Luo Qingshan was more experienced than the original host in broadcasting. After 2.5 hours of live streaming, Ling Luo went up to King of Glory. She was so excited that she was abnormal. The fans in the live streaming room were also very excited. However, Luo Qingshan still chose to end the live broadcast and told everyone that she would see her next night. After all, only with stamina would he be able to give everyone a better live broadcast. Just as she was about to turn off the computer, a private message flashed. News from Shunjia. Shunjia, last time I heard you say that you were in City A. Little fairy Ching Ching. Yes. You too? She suddenly felt that Shunjia's ID was familiar. But no matter how she looked at it, she couldn't tell which part of it was familiar. It just sounded a little smooth. Shunjia, I'm not. I'm in America right now. Little fairy Ching Ching. It really is 108,000 miles away. Shunjia, the day after tomorrow, I'm also in City A. Chapter 1670. She was used to the system's tricks, so she felt that this Shunjia was a very important person. Could it be? After that, Luo Qingshan's mind lit up as she connected all the familiar things together. Mo Zai Chun. Shunjia. No wonder. Why did she feel that this name sounded so good? So was the male lead. Little fairy Ching Ching. All right, I'll treat you to a meal when you come back. Ling Luo is also in a city. Since it was the male lead, naturally she had to treat him well. After all, this person called Mo Zai Chun had never appeared in the previous host world. Shunjia, I'll treat you to a meal. When Mo Zai Chun typed these words on the computer, he suddenly felt like he was flirting with girls on the internet. Although he didn't feel that there was anything shameful about it. Luo Qingshan turned off her computer after saying goodnight, but she never thought that the firewall she set up would block a malicious attack the moment she turned off her computer. She squinted her eyes as she ate the apple, admiring her masterpiece. The other side was clearly a newbie. Although they wrote the code was very immature. They exposed their location in just a few moves, and the screen showed that they came from a place outside the 5th Ring Road. The network wasn't stable yet, so when the ID was searched, the real name was Pei Dan Dan. Luo Qingshan couldn't help taking a screenshot and seriously recording a 10-second video to prevent future trouble. At the same time, Pei Dan Dan in front of the computer knit her brows. As she watched the code, she wrote being broken one by one in disbelief. After failing several times, she was a bit anxious. Although doing this made her conscience uneasy, as long as she thought about how she was framed first, she felt that doing this was natural. But it seemed like she failed. Pei Dan Dan couldn't help feeling strange. Why did Luo Qingshan's computer have such a high firewall? It was like she knew that someone would come and hack her computer. Moreover, her behavior at school today was also very abnormal. She was very excited when she saw Jiang Ilyang, but suddenly it strangely changed. This made her confused. She might not be able to sleep tonight. On the other side, Luo Qingshun saw the computer screen slowly dim and knew that the other side wasn't attacking her computer. It seemed that she had given up. Logically speaking, although Pei Dan Dan was known as a top student, she was still enough to deal with her. At 10 o'clock in the evening, she quickly finished the homework assigned by the school. After soaking her feet, she drank a cup of yogurt and went to bed. But that night, Jiang Iliang was also suffering from insomnia. The words that Luo Qingshun said to him at school today kept echoing in his mind, and his eyebrows furrowed tighter and tighter. In addition, she didn't go to school this afternoon, so he felt that it was a little strange. No, it should be said that it was strange. After thinking about it, there were only two possibilities. He was playing hard to get in order to get her attention. 2. He was disheartened and decided to give up. He didn't know why, but when he thought of the second possibility, he had an inexplicable feeling. He didn't like this feeling very much. He always had the feeling that something was being snatched away. Unfortunately, he was a male chauvinist. Jiang Iliang shook his head and gave a self-deprecating laugh. Chapter 1671. The next morning, she woke up at 8 sharp. Since she was a second-year student, even if it was the weekend, she still had to go to school. The previous host had her own car, so she drove to school. The Star Royal Academy was a first-class school for nobles, so there were many people who drove to school each day. Especially for nobles like Luo Qingshun. Not only could she drive to school, she also had a special parking space. Of course, people like Pei Dan Dan could only take the bus to school. But recently, she had been taking Jiang Iliang's car to school. Thinking of this, Luo Qingshun felt that the previous host was a bit pitiful since she wanted to sit in Jiang Iliang's front passenger seat so much. It was a pity that she never got to sit in it. Luo Qingshun's parking space was number 33 and Jiang Iliang's was number 32. She used to park here often, wanted to take a peek at Jiang Iliang. But she didn't know that what she was waiting for was always his and Pei Dan Dan's soft words. As a result, she felt very uncomfortable sitting here, and there was a stuffy feeling in her heart. This feeling should have come from the previous host. After parking the car, she put her hands in her pockets and carried her expensive bag as she walked forward without looking back. Jiang Iliang silently looked at her before looking away. But it was still noticed by Pei Dan Dan. What is it? She seemed to have seen through his thoughts as she whispered in his ear. If you feel it strange, you can ask. The luckiest thing in Pei Dan Dan's life was meeting Jiang Iliang because he made her feel a warmth that she had never felt before in this world. Although she always knew that Jiang Iliang had a fiancé named Luo Qingshun. But she knew that Jiang Iliang didn't love her at all and even hated her existence. She didn't have any hostility towards Luo Qingshun, but she did feel a bit uncomfortable. After all, there was no woman in this world who was willing to share a man with others. Luo Qingshun wasn't willing, so naturally Pei Dan Dan wasn't willing. The way Jiang Iliang looked at Luo Qingshun just now, she wasn't willing to see it. She was a smart girl. When a boy cast a probing look at a girl, he would be more curious and want to get closer. Jiang Iliang had looked at her like this before, so she was very clear on this. Jiang Iliang took her hand, and there was a faint sparkle in his eyes as he said, "She is what I have always dreamed of. But it really is a bit strange, isn't it?" Pei Dan Dan casually opened her mouth and said, "She used to come to the commoner class after school. She wouldn't have caused trouble for you before?" Jiang Iliang's throbbing heart suddenly disappeared. He seriously looked at Pei Dan Dan and asked, "What did she do to you, tell me?" No. Pei Dan Dan shook her head and sighed. "She's not the only one who doesn't like me in this school. Since you're so determined to choose me, I can bear the ridicule of those people." She looked down, and although she felt aggrieved, she didn't say anything else. Jiang Iliang looked at her with a pained look as he tightly held her hand. "Relax. Jiang Iliang promised that I won't let Luo Qingshun bully you. Not only her, no one in Star Royal School can bully you. You are my Jiang Iliang's woman." Chapter 1672. Actually, at that moment, she was happier than she looked on the surface. She knew why, but she didn't admit it. Jiang Iliang still had a bit of desire to explore Luo Qingshun, but now he was filled with anger. High School Second Class A. It was autumn, and the leaves outside the window fell one by one. They floated into the classroom with the wind and fell onto her textbook. 2 minutes before class started, Jiang Iliang slowly walked in. His expression didn't look good as he walked in her direction. Because most people in class were tired of beauty, although Jiang Iliang couldn't help looking up when he walked in, they weren't as excited as the people in the other classes. Su Man, sitting behind Luo Qingchun, saw Jiang Iliang walking in her direction and quickly sat up, preparing to show her most beautiful side to her male god. At this moment, Luo Qingchun was chatting with Mo Zhe Chun on QQ on her phone. It was the wee hours of the morning in America. Shenzhe. It's a bit boring. Although it was just 4 short words, Mo Zhe Chun hesitated for a long time whether he should send it or not. In the end, his hand trembled and he sent it. Little fairy Ching Ching, you're still not sleeping this late? As soon as she received the message, Luo Qingchun immediately replied to him. After all, the male lead was calling her, so she was prepared. Shenzhe, adjusting to the time difference ahead of time. Luo Qingchun didn't notice that someone was walking in her direction and kept typing with her head down. But she didn't know that before she even sent the message, there was a tall figure standing in front of her. The other side's aura was very familiar. It was a very beautiful aura for the previous host. She quickly turned off her iPhone and looked up at the figure. Luo Qingchun, I think I have to make it clear to you. Jiang Iliang's voice wasn't soft or heavy, but there was a trace of absolute coldness to it. He had actually accidentally seen Luo Qingchun's chat and quickly saw the words. You're still not sleeping this late. She was calling someone else. It was daytime now, so she must have called someone who was far away from home. Was it because of that person that Luo Qingchun's temperament suddenly changed? As soon as Jiang Iliang's voice fell, everyone's eyes fell onto her. She furrowed her clear eyes, and a hint of uneasiness flashed through her eyes. She slowly got up, put her hands in her pockets, and pressed them down. Oh, if it isn't classmate Jiang, what's the matter? She leaned against the wall by the window and narrowed her eyes, looking at Jiang Iliang with cold eyes. As the saying goes, those who come do not come with good intentions. At this moment, she had such a feeling. Oh, in your group of scoundrels, from today onwards, you're not allowed to get close to Dandan. I know very well what you have done. When Jiang Iliang said this, Su Man, sitting behind him, shrank her head back, no longer looking like she was just sitting there. The students in the class all took a cold breath. Luo Qingchun, Jiang Iliang, and Pei Dandan. These 3 love affairs were all over the school. Of course, most people were on Luo Qingchun's side in their hearts. After all, the people of the noble school didn't like a commoner like Pei Dandan. In their hearts, Pei Dandan naturally wasn't worthy of Jiang Iliang. Unhumph! Luo Qingchun gave a cold snort as her lips curled into a cold smile. I want to give you 2 choices. What did you say? He knit his brows as a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Chapter 1673. Everyone's eyes turned to Luo Qingchun at the same time. Her left hand tapped the table out of habit as she narrowed her eyes and looked indifferent. But the words that came out of her mouth were shocking. It was simply openly going against Jiang Iliang. Moreover, she didn't give any face to her fiancé at all. At this time, the crowd couldn't hold back their curiosity and began whispering to each other. God, did Luo Qingchun eat the wrong medicine? Didn't she always listen to school hunk Jiang before? Right. I've never seen her talk to school hunk Jiang like this before. Moreover, why do I feel that she strangely looks a bit handsome when she says this? He's probably disheartened. After all, it was a marriage of equal status, but a commoner came out of nowhere. If it was me, I wouldn't be happy either. Actually, although Luo Qingchun's expression was calm, there were waves surging in her heart. Damn, so angry that her mind was about to explode. Why was this supporting male lead still here? Could it be that he couldn't see how impatient she was from her beautiful eyes? Although she didn't know if Jiang Iliang could see it, she could completely see the emotions the other side conveyed to her. Stunned, confused, angry, and unable to refute. I don't hit women, but don't force me. Jiang Iliang narrowed his cold eyes, and a chill came from his body, almost freezing everyone around him. At this moment, he was really stunned by her words and couldn't react at all. Luo Qingqian gave a casual shrug as she looked at him and said, Don't, I don't think you can beat me. Luo Qingqian. He gritted his teeth and roared out as his eyes filled with rage. Jiang Iliang, don't think too highly of yourself. Luo Qingqian said with a faint smile, Your position in my heart is worthless. As soon as her voice fell, her smile disappeared and her eyes turned cold. She thought that her words were harsh enough, but she hoped that Jiang Iliang standing in front of her could hear her clearly. Jiang Iliang was stunned for 2 seconds before coming back to his senses. Then you don't need to apologize for the shameful things you've done before. He could clearly feel his cheeks heating up, and the words that came out of his mouth were somewhat out of his control. He had never felt such a feeling in his entire life. The first time, it was actually because of Luo Qingqian. Yo. Luo Qingqian smiled disdainfully and said, Student Jiang, I'm afraid your memory is very bad. You seem to have said from today onwards. You also, if you want to stand up for Pei Dan, I advise you not to look for me, because Bao Bao is very busy and has no time to care about you too. Luo Qingqian cut off Jiang Iliang, who wanted to speak. As for the strange engagement between us, if you're embarrassed, you can tell Uncle and Annie that I broke it. Jiang Iliang fell silent. He didn't say such unreasonable things anymore. Instead, he looked at her very seriously and attentively. That kind of gaze had never appeared in the memories of the previous host. Cuckoo. The teacher standing at the podium cleared her throat. Seeing that the battle was over, she finally dared to speak. Then Student Jiang, Student Luo, it's time for class. Chapter 1674. Jiang Iliang looked away and slowly walked back to his seat. After sitting down, he couldn't help secretly looking at Luo Qingqian. The autumn sun shined down on her chestnut-colored hair, and he suddenly felt that she was dazzling. He couldn't admit it. It was a dazzling that he wasn't willing to admit. The teacher on the podium also looked very embarrassed, even though it had delayed the class. Although the class was delayed, one was Jiang Iliang and one was Luo Qingqian. These 2 students were important people that she couldn't afford to offend. Thinking about it, being the teacher of a class was a very scary thing. After all, the chairman's son was coming back on Monday, so he would definitely be in a class. After class, Su Man excitedly ran over and grabbed her hand as she asked, Qingqian, is this a strategy? I feel that. It has a bit of effect. She was sitting in the back and could clearly see that Jiang Iliang couldn't help looking in Luo Qingqian's direction during this class. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Su Man, actually I've always known that you like classmates, Su. Luo Qingqian slowly looked up and said in a serious voice, Chase him if you like him. There's no me in front of you. Su Man was surprised before quickly shaking her head. No, I'm just helping you. I don't need you to help me. This isn't a strategy. She patted her chest, looked at her, and said, Everything I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. I really can't believe it. As soon as her voice fell, she slowly stood up and patted her shoulder. Good luck. I'm going to the library. Su Man wasn't a friend that she could rely on, although she didn't have any bad intentions towards her. But in another world, when the previous host was the target of public criticism, she didn't hesitate to stand on the opposite side. Quite decisive. This kind of person was only a friend on the surface. It was fine if everyone was a bit embarrassed, but it wasn't possible to have a heart-to-heart. It was only a 5-minute walk from the teacher's office to the library, but she had become the center of attention along the way and had received a steady stream of gossip. One of them, who claimed to be a reporter from Star Imperial College, Yu Zijuan, rushed up with his phone as a microphone. Beautiful student Luo, can you spare 3 minutes for us, the Gossip Society, to do a simple interview? You can't. Luo Chun coldly said these 2 words and sped up. What the hell was this school? What kind of gossip club was this? Are you kidding me? I only need 2 to 3 minutes of your time. Mr. Pomelo was quite professional. He immediately pressed the recording button on his phone. No time. Goodbye. Luo Qingshan shook her head seriously and said, "Please go and find Jiang Tong to discuss your problems, okay?" But Mr. Pomelo pouted and choked with sobs. Tears welled up in his eyes as if they would fall at any moment. Logically speaking, Luo Qingshan couldn't bear to see people cry, let alone a big man crying in front of her. She was already eye-catching enough, but she always felt that when Mr. Pomelo cried. She was like a million-watt lighthouse, standing in the middle of the school, shining brightly. "Stop!" Luo Qingshan crossed her arms and looked at him with a helpless and angry expression. "I'll give you 1 minute." Ask quickly. "Okay, let's get to the main topic." Mr. Pomelo's choked voice disappeared, and even his tears seemed to flow back. Chapter 1675. Hurry up and ask. Bao Bao is really busy. However, since she had already made a promise, even if the other party played some harmless tricks, it didn't matter. She still had 1 minute. First question, Student Luo, did you quarrel with School Hunk Jiang today? That's called theory. I don't usually quarrel, especially with unimportant people. Second question, did you and School Hunk Jiang cancel your engagement because of Pei Dan's interference? For me, it's because Bao Bao doesn't like him. As for whether or not she interfered, don't you all know? Third question, do you have anything to say to your old love, School Hunk Jiang? Sorry, I've never loved him. Fourth question, little brother, it's been a minute, okay? Luo Qingshan waved the phone in her hand and said, I'm so cooperative. Can't you be a little more lenient? Yu Zijun hurriedly bowed and said with a smile, Thank you for your cooperation, little sister. At this moment, there were many people around her taking photos and recording. Most of them were just onlookers who didn't mind the commotion. Sometimes, she didn't understand these people. They had a lot of things to do, but they didn't take care of them. You're welcome. As soon as her voice fell, Luo Qingshan was about to walk forward when a student in a blood-stained uniform ran over. Luo Qingshan frowned and immediately grabbed a student and asked, What's wrong? Are you hurt? No, it's not me. I was about to go to the infirmary to find a doctor. One of my classmates was accidentally stabbed in the chest by a piece of metal when she climbed the wall to leave the school. That person looked very flustered and her hands couldn't stop trembling. Take me to see her. The other student go to the infirmary to find a doctor. Luo Qingshan pulled the girl's hand and asked as she ran, Did you call an ambulance? I did, but it's rush hour now and the roads are blocked. That person was a little flustered and ran with Luo Qingshan without hesitation. A large group of onlookers stood on the low wall near the basketball court on the east side. Luo Qingshan frowned. She quickly found a shelter and took out the all-purpose medicine box from her portable space. Then, he immediately squeezed into the crowd. She didn't know why, but ever since she became proficient in medicine, she became obsessed with saving people. This was probably a challenge for her. Lying in a pool of blood was a slightly plump man. There was a piece of metal about 10 centimeters long inserted into his chest. It didn't look like a piece of metal, but more like a steel bar. The school basketball court had been renovated recently, and this kind of thing could be seen everywhere on the east wall. She quickly took out a stethoscope from her portable space and frowned. The onlookers all looked at her. After all, she was the talk of the school. Now that he had suddenly appeared here with a stethoscope, it was especially strange. It's the vena cava. The blood vessels around it are still bleeding. Are you a doctor? The girl kneeling beside the boy kept crying. She seemed to be his girlfriend. Yes. Luo Qingshan nodded and then said, His vital signs have been declining. If we don't pull out the metal plate now, he won't last more than 10 minutes. Chapter 1676. This classmate, look into my eyes. Luo Qingshan quickly took out a pair of hemostatic forceps and alcohol from the medical kit, while seriously looking into the girl's eyes. I. Her voice was trembling so much that she couldn't even speak properly, but she still gave a strong nod. What is your name? Luo Qingshan looked up with Liguang like water in her eyes. I'm. Slow down, say it word by word. Gu you. After stuttering for a while, the girl finally said her name. Luo Qingshan patted her shoulder in encouragement and said with a faint smile, Very good. don't be nervous. He can still be saved as long as you do as I say. All right. She gave a strong nod. Luo Qingshan could see that she was very nervous. Her tears couldn't stop falling, and even her lips couldn't help trembling. There were many people who couldn't understand, but Luo Qingshan did, because she had experienced more than them. The life of the most important person was slowly fading away in front of her. This required a very strong heart to make the most correct judgment. At the same time, on the basketball court on the west side of the campus, Jiang Yiliang was holding the basketball and missed several three-pointers, so he slightly knit his brows, looking a bit anxious. Pei Dan, sitting on the bench on the side, could see his anxiety, and she knew what it was because of what happened in Class A today had already spread, and there were even people who recorded it and uploaded it to the school website. Although it was quickly deleted, she still saw it. That indifferent and arrogant face, not caring about Jiang Yiliang at all. Luo Qingshan really made her feel disbelief. If she didn't see the video with her own eyes, she would never have believed that Luo Qingshan would say something like that to Jiang Yiliang. Dong! A three-pointer missed the basket. He waved his hand and didn't plan on continuing, preparing to walk in Pei Dan's direction. Unexpectedly, Mr. Yu came out of nowhere. He wasn't standing close to Jiang Yiliang, so he tentatively asked, "Is the male lead of this matter willing to accept a visit from the gossip club? I want to verify if it matches what the female lead," Luo said. His voice was neither soft nor heavy, and he was already prepared to flee. After all, there weren't many people in the stars who could fight Jiang Yiliang. He didn't dare offend him. However, he had no choice but to do the mission assigned by the president. He could only brace himself and take a gamble. Jiang Yiliang didn't plan on stopping, but hearing that Luo Qingshan was participating in the interview, he couldn't help stopping. What did she say? He narrowed his eyes and looked at Mr. Pomelo with a smile. Pei Dan hurried over and blinked. "Don't worry, just say it. Nothing will happen to Yiliang." "Thank you, beautiful lady." Mr. Pomelo handed over the phone with trembling hands. "There's a recording in here. I just want to verify if what she said is true. That's called a theory. We usually don't quarrel, especially with insignificant people. To me, it's the baby who doesn't like him. As for whether I'm involved or not, doesn't everyone know? I'm sorry, I've never loved. Never loved. Never loved. Never loved." These three words were like a nightmare that couldn't stop echoing in his mind. There was a strange feeling of discomfort that kept coming from the depths of his heart. This large change was something he couldn't accept for a while. Chapter 1677. Where is she? Jiang Yiliang pursed his lips like he was finding an excuse. Dan never needed to get involved. She's wrong. Pei Dan on the side saw this and quickly pulled on his sleeve before saying to Yu Zijun, "It's fine. What she said was the truth." "Who said it was the truth?" Jiang Yiliang immediately replied to Pei Dan, his voice filled with unwillingness and anger. Pei Dan was shocked. She had known Jiang Yiliang for a long time, and she had never seen him this angry before. It was like he was angry at her, but also angry at himself. For what? Was it because she didn't want to get involved, or never loved? Pei Dan was a smart person, but she was numb at this moment. Forget it. Pei Dan gave the phone back to Yu Zijun and took his hand. "Let's go eat, all right? I want to eat hot pot today." Jiang Yiliang heard this and slightly knit his brows. His eyes sparkled as he said, "I won't allow her to say this to you. You didn't get involved. As soon as his voice fell, without waiting for Pei Dan to speak, he asked Yu Zijun, "Where is she? Have you seen her?" "The basketball court to the east." Someone was injured, and she rushed over after hearing this. Yu Zijun immediately ran off after saying this. Jiang Yiliang narrowed his eyes and looked to the east, moving forward without another word. Pei Dan was surprised. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. Jiang Yiliang gave a very good reason. For her, he had to go. But actually, she didn't want to go. On the other side, Luo Qingshan seriously looked into Gu Yu's eyes. "Xiao Yu, I have a few short questions. Can you tell me immediately if you know? Believe me, I will think of a way to save him." All right. What is your boyfriend's name?" "Ding Yang." Do you know what your boyfriend's blood type is? Oh. Oh, type. Weight? It should be 160 pounds. All right. Luo Qingqian nodded and said to one of the boys who was recording with a mobile phone, the one in the black coat over there, stop recording. Quickly call the 120 emergency center. The patient has 160 pounds of O-type blood. Ask them to prepare the blood plasma. The boy in black was instantly called out, and his phone almost fell to the ground. He hastily called out, Okay. When he faced Ding Yang again, he felt dizzy and his chest was stuffy. She pursed her lips and didn't pay much attention to it. He immediately said to the other boys on the other side, If you guys can, come over and help. Everyone looked at each other for a while, but when they saw Ding Yang lying on the ground with a pale face, they still walked up to him with the mentality of human nature is good at birth. Listen to me, the rebar was inserted into the vena cava, and the wound has started to bleed. There is only one way to save him. Luo Qingqian narrowed her eyes and said, I will pull out the steel bar and immediately find the bleeding location and stop the bleeding with hemostatic forceps. What? No, you can't. Guyu shook her head nervously and said, You'll bleed profusely and die. Chapter 1678. But I... Guyu couldn't make up her mind as she trembled. At this time, there was a familiar voice that came from behind her. It came from Jiang Yiliang. She's right. According to the current amount of blood, it should be over 1,000 cc. There's no need for you to repeat such an obvious truth. Luo Qingqian knit her brows. Although she didn't turn around, she could see Pei Dan's figure from the corner of her eyes. At this time of crisis, she really wasn't in the mood to argue with them. She immediately turned to Guyu and said, Bleeding from the vena cava for 6 to 10 minutes will cause severe hemorrhagic shock. After this iron bar is pulled out, there will definitely be a large amount of blood loss, and it is very likely that there will be irreversible heart and brain damage. Luo Qingqian paused before looking at her and saying, Pull out or not. I've already told you the worst result. It's your choice. Originally, there were still some whispers around, but at this moment, all of them stopped. Everyone seemed to realize the seriousness of this matter and put down their phones. 3 years later, Guyu suddenly looked up at her and said, I'll listen to you. Relax. I'll definitely find the location of the bleeding in 2 minutes. The doctor in the infirmary was standing on the side, looking a bit helpless. He could understand what Luo Qingqian was saying, but to be able to find the location of the bleeding in 2 minutes, not to mention a city, there weren't many people in the country who could do this. This was something that only an experienced doctor could do. Jiang Yiliang narrowed his eyes as he looked at Luo Qingqian, who was squatting on the ground covered in blood. That person who had been dizzy with blood since she was young and was this sensitive to blood. At this moment, she was actually doing something that was different from normal people. Suddenly, he couldn't hate her anymore. Luo Qingqian had the boy on the side take the gauze and balance solution while she held the scalpel and hemostatic forceps. Get ready. Luo Qingqian looked at them and said, 1, 2, 3, pull. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. Her moon-white uniform was dyed bright red, and her snow-white cheeks were splattered with blood. The girl's eyes were fixed on the injured man in front of her the whole time. Gauze. Luo Qingqian almost shouted herself hoarse. She murmured, It's the vena cava. It's the vena cava. She used the fastest speed to find the bleeding spot for herself and pressed down with the hemostatic forceps. 8 minutes later, the ambulance arrived just in time. Luo Qingqian's right hand was still holding the hemostatic forceps tightly. You did very well. A boy explained the situation on my way here. The doctor was stunned when he saw her use the hemostatic forceps to stop the vena cava. The words that he wanted to say were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say a word. Open venous access, balance the solution, maintain blood pressure. Luo Qingqian frowned. She skipped over the nurse behind the doctor and said, Carry the patient to the ambulance. He must enter the operating room immediately. Oh, okay. Quick, carry the patient to the ambulance. When a nurse's voice sounded, the doctor in front of her came back to his senses and immediately said, The O-type blood plasma is ready. As soon as his voice fell, He carefully took the hemostatic forceps from Luo Qingqian's hand and carried Ding Yang into the ambulance. Can I go with you? You are. She's the patient's girlfriend. Chapter 1679. The doctor looked at him in surprise and a little unconvinced. After all, there weren't many people as powerful as him in the entire Hage hospital. Naturally, he was a little dissatisfied, so his tone wasn't very good. As the night wind blew, her school uniform was already stained with blood. Her hands were also covered in blood, but her eyes were still extremely cold. In the next second, she slightly raised her eyes and said, Hage Hospital board member Luo Gudu is my father. Who do you think I am? At this time, she wasn't some godly doctor, but one of the 4 big families in a city, the daughter of the Luo family. The male doctor was startled and immediately smiled. So, it's Miss Luo. No wonder you had such an experience. Your skills just now can really be called a golden needle, bringing the dead back to life. Ha ha ha. Then he inexplicably laughed awkwardly. Luo Qingqian was too lazy to pay attention to him. She took out a pen and paper from the chest of his white coat and said, The sharp weapon entered from the left chest. More than 1,000 cubic centimeters of vena cava bleeding, low blood pressure, unstable heart rate. As the pen fell, she raised her eyes and said, I can only do this much. Okay. The male doctor nodded enthusiastically and quickly got into the ambulance. Luo Qingqian narrowed her eyes. Her forehead was covered in sweat, and her heart was beating very fast. From just now, she felt that there was something wrong with her. Or perhaps it could be said that the body of the original owner was a little strange. It seemed like the moment the ambulance drove away, the surrounding onlookers instantly applauded. Luo Qingqian was shocked by the sudden applause. She looked around and saw that everyone was looking at her with admiration. At this time, a familiar and annoyed voice sounded, with a doubtful tone, Don't you have blood phobia? Although he didn't want to pay attention to Luo Qingqian, they were still childhood sweethearts. He knew that she had blood phobia. If you're not feeling well, go to the infirmary. Pei Dan didn't forget to add in a sentence. His tone was a little strange. He seemed to be concerned, but his tone, Luo Qingqian turned and put her hands in her pocket. She looked over Pei Dan, and her eyes fell on a Jiang Iliang. Classmate Jiang, please don't appear wherever I go, otherwise I will feel. He was stunned and looked away awkwardly. At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten his purpose for coming here. Instead, there was an inexplicable nervousness. Well, what? In the next second, her eyebrows twitched and she snorted. You have a crush on me. Hey, don't be funny, all right? Jiang Iliang replied almost instantly as a trace of nervousness flashed in his eyes. He had a crush on her? Are you kidding me? From the past until now, he had been clinging to him, and openly loving him. He had always been annoyed with her. Not to mention having a crush on her, he wasn't even willing to look at her. In his eyes, what he was looking forward to was a perfect love that would last forever, not a match made in heaven. So, he hated Luo Qingqian's identity since he was born. He felt that there was a world of difference between her and Pei Dan. She didn't have any merits. Being pampered and willful, looking at her was annoying. But today he saw how focused she was when saving people, how smoothly she treated them. Just like this, she had saved someone who was on the verge of death. At this moment, she didn't have any new expensive clothes, was covered in blood, and her delicate little face was a bit dirty. Chapter 1680. The news of Luo Qingqian saving someone spread all over in a single afternoon. There were all kinds of rumors, and Luo Qingqian had heard several kinds of rumors. Even a McDonald's at the school gate could hear the gossips of the crowd. Did you hear? That Luo family's young miss not only insulted school hunk Jiang today, she also saved someone in a very exaggerated way. It feels like she's using cheats. She could do anything. It can't be that she's playing hard to get a school hunk Jiang, right? I don't think so. She might have transmigrated. When she heard the last sentence, she couldn't help spitting out the mashed potatoes in her mouth. We're all children's imaginations this big now. Did she read too much of that origami glazed glass novel and felt like she was being poked through? When she got home, she received a text from her mother. The four great families are having a gathering tomorrow at the Marriott Resort Villa for 3 days. You can bring your family if you have one. Luo Qingchen was a bit shocked when she received this text, even checking the phone number and name several times. It was indeed the previous host's mother. Seeing this text, she couldn't help muttering in her heart, "Damn, are all parents this cute now? They even have expressions when they talk." After a simple reply, she began to pack her things for the vacation and asked for leave. The teacher immediately replied and told her to pay attention to her safety. As long as she had fun, it didn't matter if she took 30 days off. Luo Qingshan finally felt the difference between a teacher for a commoner and a teacher for a noble. It was simply a difference between heaven and earth. The next morning, she didn't get up too early or too late. The driver was already waiting for her downstairs. She had a limited edition LV suitcase and was wearing a fashionable outfit, looking very dazzling. Looking at herself before going out, she was a 100% beauty. To be honest, the previous host wasn't just a bit better looking than Pei Dan Dan. She didn't know what kind of eyes Jiang Iliang had. Could it be he liked inner beauty more? Ding dong. Sitting in the driver's car, her phone suddenly rang with a text message. Opening it, it was a QQ message from Mo Zaichun. "Shunjia, I got off the plane." "Damn, miss, what's wrong?" The driver was frightened by her exclamation and asked hurriedly. Luo Qingchun shook her head and said, "No, it's nothing. Drive carefully. Safety first." As soon as she finished speaking, she took out her phone and quickly replied, "Little fairy Qing Qing, you're at the airport?" "Shunjia, I got off the plane 2 hours ago." "Little fairy Qing Qing, since you're a guest from afar, I should have gone to pick you up. But I have something to do today." "Shunjia, don't worry, you go ahead." The corners of Luo Qingchen's mouth rose slightly, thinking, this is a considerate male lead Darren. The road to the Marriott Resort Villa wasn't far. It was an hour's drive. When she arrived, she met Jiang Iliang, who was also from the four great families. Of course, he brought his family with him. He didn't care about Uncle Zhang's face at all. He brought a person who belonged here into this place. One had to know that the cost of a day at Marriott Resort Villa was equivalent to Pei Dandan's annual living expenses. It was definitely not an exaggeration. Luo Qingshun put on dark sunglasses and slowly walked out when the driver opened the door. Through the sunglasses, she looked over Pei Dandan. It was a pink dress, this year's Chanel autumn and winter collection. But she didn't know why Pei Dandan's face really couldn't support this dress. Chapter 1681. Jiang Iliang looked at her with deep eyes. He wanted to say something, but he found that other than saying bad things about Luo Qingshun, he couldn't say anything else. This had already become a habit. It was like he had never been gentle to her before. "Isn't this Qing?" Jiang Ibai came out and immediately saw her, looking very happy. Madame Jiang, standing beside him, was the same. When she saw Luo Qingshun, she enthusiastically came forward. To them, the Jiang family and the Luo family were old friends. She and Jiang Iliang were the ones who should be together, not Pei Dandan, who didn't have any status at all. Although she didn't agree with this view in Luo Qingchen's world, she felt very comfortable at this moment. Could it be that the character settings of this plane gave her some unknown potential for malice? But she knew in her heart that this wasn't the case. She didn't like Pei Dandan mainly because she wasn't as kind as she seemed on the surface. She felt that she was just a normal person and wasn't as kind as Jiang Iliang said. The computer intrusion was a very clear example. She didn't want Luo Qingshun to have a good time and didn't plan on forgiving her. But in front of Jiang Iliang, she didn't show it. Yes, old man, your eyesight is very good when you see Qingshun. I don't normally see you being this powerful." Mrs. Jiang intimately came forward to hold her hand. "How have you been at school recently? Did that kid, Iliang, bully you?" When Madame Jiang said this, she kept looking in Pei Dandan's direction. Her eyes were full of hostility. At that moment, the atmosphere was very awkward. Even she felt a strange awkwardness, not to mention Pei Dandan and Jiang Iliang. Right. If he bullies you, just tell uncle." Jiang Yibai said with a soft snort. "You are Gudu's daughter, so you are half my daughter. If he wants to be with those people, He can't have everything that the Jiang family has. In an instant, the atmosphere changed from awkward to tense. Luo Qingshun could feel that Jiang Yibai was angry, and he was very angry. It was understandable if one thought about it carefully. The four families that came to the Marriott Resort Villa were all rich and powerful in a city. This was the so-called gathering of the four great clans. If an unfamiliar face suddenly appeared in the banquet, he would naturally be asked about his background. If everyone knew that Jiang Iliang's girlfriend was just a commoner, Jiang Yibai would lose all his face. "Dad, don't say that about Dandan." Jiang Iliang pursed his lips and said, "I brought her to the banquet. She's not here to be reviewed by you. She's not qualified to be examined by us." Jiang Yibai snorted coldly and said, "Our Jiang family will never acknowledge a person with such a status. If you're willing to be on the same level as her, you are not qualified to be a member of our Jiang family." Old man. Mrs. Jiang saw that the smell of gunpowder between the father and son was getting more and more intense, so she advised, "Have a good vacation. Don't scold your son so easily." At this time, the resentful Pei Dan finally opened her mouth. Chapter 1682. Jiang Yiliang tightly held her hand, not moving back at all. At first glance, he seemed like a man who didn't want his true love to suffer any grievances, but his heart was actually filled with panic. He wanted to attract someone's attention. He wanted to prove that he wasn't worth anything in that person's heart. But he didn't know that Luo Qingshun pushed up her sunglasses and said with a beautiful smile, "Uncle, Auntie, I won't disturb your discussion of family matters. My mom should be here already." The words family matters made Jiang Iliang stunned. When he came back to his senses, Luo Qingshun had already disappeared from his line of sight. Pei Dan could clearly see those eyes filled with unwillingness and expectation. The Marriott Mountain Villa was very big. Luo Qingshun's room was on the top floor, 230 square meter suite. The retail price was $58,000 per night. For ordinary students, it was really a sky-high price. There were rooms for the other three families next door. The Mo family's room was the largest, being 320 square meters, with a price of $93,000 per night. It seemed like the Mo family was indeed the head of the A city's four great families. But it wasn't because it was a few tens of thousands more. Rather, it was because the other three families were willing to give this room to them. DD. Her phone vibrated, which came from the special notification she had set in the car. "Shunjia, I want to directly invite you and Ling Luo, but I suddenly want to meet for 3 days." Luo Qingshun, holding the phone, couldn't help giving a chuckle. It seemed like Mo Zhe Chun didn't know her identity. This wasn't strange since there weren't many people in the circle who knew that she was an anchor on Big Pineapple TV. It was just the previous host's hobby. Little fairy Ching. What kind of meeting would take 3 days? DD. The other side replied almost instantly, with a trace of helplessness in his voice. "Shunjia, Mountain Villa, I'll bring you next time." "Puchi." Luo Qingshun gave a shrug as she muttered, "Do you need to be this direct?" After staying in the room for a bit, she changed her clothes and had some free time to chat with Mo Zhe-chun. Because the previous host wasn't familiar with Mo Zhe-chun, there were many things she didn't know. Most of the time, he would tell her when they were chatting. For example, he was about to transfer to Xing Chun Empire Academy for the second year of high school, the same school as her. Sure enough, the tricks in the plane were always so unexpected. Although she already had a strong heart, she was still very surprised. It turned out that the male lead and the original host were destined to meet, but the original host didn't have this opportunity. The banquet began at 7 o'clock sharp. In addition to the members of the four major families, those who came to Wanhao Villa for a vacation were either rich or noble people in the circle. Pei Dan had the lowest social status in the whole venue. Even the chefs and security guards in the venue were nobler than her. Therefore, when Jiang Iliang walked into the banquet hall holding Pei Dan's hand, it attracted everyone's attention. This was the first time most of the people had seen Pei Dan. Looking at the limited edition dress she was wearing, paired with a pair of dull shoes, the whispers of the crowd instantly exploded. Jiang Yibai's face, which was originally full of smiles, darkened instantly. Chapter 1683. Who is this person? She looks so unfamiliar. She should be the daughter of some nouveau riche family. I've been in the circle for several years, but I've never seen her before. Old Jiang doesn't seem like someone who likes nouveau riche. Nouveau riche your head. Look at her shoes. One look and you can tell that they're from a street stall. Even I feel that such shoes are a stain to my eyes. The one who said this was someone who loved shoes to the point of going crazy. She was known as the shoe queen in the circle. As long as it was the hottest shoe of the season, she would have it, whether it was limited or not. This was why Luo Qingshan thought that Pei Dan would never be able to enter the circle. It was because they were too far apart. The host of the banquet saw that the situation was a bit awkward, so he changed the topic with a few words. But he didn't divert the attention of many people on Pei Dan. They looked at her like she was an outsider, looking at her with judgmental gazes. At this moment, Pei Dan gritted her teeth and looked elsewhere. Actually, she knew that she shouldn't have come here. But she also knew that she had to come. Because Jiang Yiliang had been paying too much attention to Luo Qingshan these past few days, they were already engaged. Luo Qingshan liked him that much before. So if Jiang Yiliang had a change of heart, it would be very easy for him to pursue Luo Qingshan again. She loved Jiang Yiliang. She had received many jealous gazes. It wasn't easy for her to be with Jiang Yiliang. How could she let others steal him? Jiang Yiliang had casually mentioned this banquet, but she who had never interfered in his family's matters had actually asked him if he could bring her. She could clearly see that Jiang Yiliang's deep eyes were stunned for a second. At 7:30, after half an hour of solemn speeches, Luo Qingshan slowly walked into the banquet hall. She had changed into a moon-white dress with a white and white coat. Each piece of clothing was a limited edition from Givenchy. Luo Qingshan could clearly feel that the moment she walked in, she was the center of attention, but she couldn't find a face that stunned her. Was Mo Zaichen not here? Next, we will enter the most important part of tonight's dance. This is a solo dance. If any of the young masters and daughters have a partner that they like, you can extend your hand to her according to the rhythm of the music and invite her to dance. As soon as his voice fell, a beautiful waltz symphony began to play. In fact, there were more single men and women in this circle. They were unwilling to be left out, so they could only accept couples of equal social status. And this kind of ball was something that the uncles of the four great clans tacitly approved of. At that moment, everyone in the Marriott Resort Villa was of the upper class. If they could get married, their identities would naturally be extraordinary. It was a given that they were well-matched in terms of social status. Luo Qingshan was drinking yogurt while looking at her phone. Jiang Yiliang looked in her direction and narrowed his deep eyes. There had been such gatherings before, and she would always run to him and beg him to dance with her. He told himself that if Luo Qingshan came over today, he would dance with her. That way, the little flame that kept burning in his heart would be extinguished by himself, because the one he hated the most was Luo Qingshan, who kept pestering him. But he never thought that the plans of this world couldn't keep up with the changes. Someone actually invited her for the first dance. "Young Miss Luo, do I have the honor to invite you to dance?" A youth in a white shirt suddenly appeared beside her with a black bow tied to his collar. He looked at her phone, and his lips curled into a smile that no one knew about. Chapter 1684. Instantly, there was a commotion around them. Everyone's eyes fell onto the most dazzling youth. There was a faint smile in his deep eyes, just like the bright Li Guang in the shadows. Mo Zaichen just casually stood there, like he was the main character, attracting the attention of countless people. That included Jiang Yiliang. He had seen Mo Zaichen before, but he didn't have much of an impression. He only knew that he was a genius, getting full marks on the college entrance exam when he was 13 and going abroad to study when he was 14. He was the head of a city's four great families, and Mo Jing's only son. He heard that he came back yesterday, but he never thought that he would ask Luo Qingshan for a dance. When the system notification sounded, Luo Qingshan was stunned, because her first reaction was the legendary love at first sight. Mo Zaichen's eyes were very good-looking, with a faint glow in the dark brown eyes. His white skin set off his handsome face, and his gentle voice sounded in her ears. His slender fingers made a dance request, which made people's hearts tremble. To be honest, even if the other side wasn't Emo-Zae-chun, his actions were enough to make her unconsciously fall in love with him at first sight. That kind of beating heart. Damn, so handsome. The Emo family's young master? Ah, I know him. He just came back from America. He's a foreign professor. Is he coming back to take over the Emo family? No, no, no. I heard that he came back for his second year of high school. Eh? My God, isn't that crushing all the teachers? It's like fighting a beginner with top-grade equipment. Is it interesting? Emo-Zae-chun ignored their whispers and seriously looked at Luo Qingchun, who hadn't responded yet. Miss Luo isn't willing. Of course not. Luo Qingchun softly placed her hand in his warm palm. I'm just thinking about how to accept it in a more reserved manner. Emo-Zae-chun heard this, and his lips curled into a beautiful curve. He pulled her to his side and whispered in her ear, "You're already very reserved because everyone knows that I'm the one taking the initiative." The graceful waltz music of the ball began to play. They danced to the music and smiled at each other. Jiang Iliang, not far away, looked at Luo Qingchun and Emo-Zae-chun in disbelief. She looked up slightly with a faint smile as she looked at Emo-Zae-chun's face. There was a golden glow in her eyes. Emo-Zae-chun looked at her with a strange, pampering gaze, like the two of them already knew each other. Impossible, impossible, impossible. How could this be? A few days ago, Luo Qingchun was still clinging to him. Suddenly, she changed. Could it be because of Emo-Zae-chun? Jiang Iliang didn't know why, but there was a very uncomfortable feeling in his heart when he thought of it. It was as if something that originally belonged to him had suddenly disappeared. Pei Dan Dan beside him was a bit depressed. She looked up with a bit of disappointment in her eyes as she looked at Jiang Iliang. "You're not going to ask me for a dance?" Actually, she knew who Jiang Iliang was looking at, and she knew why he had this unwilling expression. There were times when people who were too smart couldn't feel happiness. So this time, she planned on acting like she didn't see anything and didn't know anything. Chapter 1685. Oh, Jiang Iliang looked away and took her hand. "Sorry, I was thinking about something else." Seeing Pei Dan Dan's disappointed look, Jiang Iliang suddenly felt that he had wronged her. There was a moment of dissociation, like he had accidentally gone off the rails. From the past until now, he had always felt that he was the most infatuated man in the world. He didn't care about the same status or the engagement. As long as he liked it, he would think of a way to have it. But at this moment, he felt that he was a bit despicable. It should be the dark side of human nature. The girl in his hand was clearly the one he loved the most in his life. But when he saw Luo Qingchun's faint smile, he felt that if everything went according to his parents' plan, wouldn't it be good if it went step by step? This feeling was like a flame burning in his heart. It really was uncomfortable. Pei Dan Dan obediently nodded. "Don't think about it. Seeing how worried you are, my heart will hurt." She pursed her lips, and her voice was a bit soft, but it was very gentle. Jiang Iliang patted her head. "Fool, let's dance." It had to be said, Pei Dan Dan really looked as ugly as a duck when dancing this high-class waltz. It seemed like the heavens gave a person good knowledge, but they also gave her stiff limbs. Luo Qingchun had seen her step on Jiang Iliang more than a few times, and she kept apologizing. Jiang Iliang had a gentle smile the first few times, saying that it was fine and she could slowly learn. But Jiang Iliang's face didn't look good. It was a bit dark. Luo Qingchun thought. It should be because he was stepped on. When she was distracted, Emo-Zae-chun's soft as cotton voice sounded in her ears. "My partner doesn't seem to be focused on dancing with me." No. Luo Qingchun looked away and said with a faint smile, "I was just, Pei Dan Dan, who was originally beside her, accidentally tripped and fell straight next to her." Emo-Zae-chun reacted quickly and pulled her in his direction, firmly protecting her behind him. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. Jiang Iliang and Luo Qingchun both saw this, but their minds were different. Jiang Iliang's heart was filled with an uncomfortable feeling, as the feeling of something that belonged to him being stolen became stronger. Pei Dan, on the other hand, felt like she was in the same position as Luo Qingxin. She was clearly the one who sprained her ankle and fell to the ground, but the man standing beside her was so afraid that she would get hurt. It was just like how she had been in the past, protected in the arms of a handsome, outstanding, and worshipped young man. However, due to her identity and status, she would always be looked at differently by others. She would never be worthy of him. But Luo Qingxin was different. This was her home ground. Mo Zaichun looked away and looked at Luo Qingxin beside him. "Are you all right?" Just now, when someone almost bumped into her, he felt inexplicably flustered. Although this panic was very shallow, he could still feel it. It seemed that love always needed to go through precise calculations before one could keep the person that one loved by one's side. Actually, she had already suspected that little fairy Qing Qing was Luo Qingxin, but she wasn't 100% certain. Chapter 1686. After around 10 seconds, Jiang Iliang finally came back to his senses and reached out to help Pei Dan on the ground. There was a burst of laughter around them, which made Jiang Iliang feel very humiliated. Perhaps there was something like being matched, and perhaps Pei Dan, couldn't protect her forever. "I want to go back." She bit her lip and turned to look at him with sparkling tears in her eyes. She said in a soft voice, "Sorry, I lost face for you." Jiang Iliang looked at Pei Dan's tear-stained face, and his male chauvinism came out. His heart was conflicted, but since he was the one who brought her here, protecting her was something he should do. "Don't be afraid. No one will bully you with me here." Jiang Iliang took her hand and said, "It's fine if you don't know how to dance. I can teach you." Mo Zaichun heard this and slightly knit his brows as he said to Luo Qingxin beside him, "Let's not dance and go get something to eat?" With someone with this kind of dancing skills, he was a bit worried. "All right, I'm hungry." Luo Qingxin nodded. Looking at the other side's faint smile, there was an inexplicable warm feeling. She didn't look at Jiang Iliang as she walked over to the table. Luo Qingxin's parents had very good expressions, and the smiles on their faces were hard to hide. His daughter had been cruelly abandoned by Jiang Iliang, so he was a bit unhappy. But the Luo and Jiang families were old friends, so he couldn't fall out with them. Not to mention that the Jiang family's two elders were very good to their daughter, but they couldn't enter Jiang Iliang's face. But now, his daughter had entered the eyes of the Mo family's young master. It really was radishes and vegetables. Everyone had their own preferences. On the other side, the Jiang family's two elders had ugly expressions. It was as dark as the sky before a storm, looking at their son with a lowly commoner with a dark expression. The higher the status of a person, the more they hoped that the other half of their junior would be someone of the same status. This way, not only could they establish their position in the business circle, they could also get more business resources. Mo Zaichun's father, Mo Jing, was a rather cold person. Although the four great families had attended many gatherings together in name, they had never had a chance to interact deeply. His son had gone to study in the United States early and had just gotten off the plane today, but she didn't expect that he would take a fancy to her daughter. The banquet went smoothly and ended on time 2 hours later. Luo Qingxin returned to her room to take a shower before changing into a red Milan winter coat. When she was prepared to go out to watch the fireworks, she received a QQ message from Mo Zaichun. Perhaps he should call him Shunjia. Shunjia. Actually, I think I should tell you something. Luo Qingxin looked at the words on the phone screen and quickly typed a line in the chat box with a faint smile. "Little fairy Qing Qing, please speak, Mr. Mo Zaichun." Mo Zaichun, who always replied, instantly froze as he felt his mind fall into chaos. The person whose brain had a magical circuit and was proficient in calculation actually couldn't think clearly at this moment. She knew that he was Mo Zaichun. Why? Why would he know? When did she know that Shunjia and Mo Zaichun were the same person? When he connected all the clues together, he found that there was nothing There was no clue that could connect Mo Zhe Chun and Shun Zhe together. Chapter 1687. He hesitated for close to 5 minutes, writing and deleting the message in the chat box. Finally, he steeled his heart and knocked on her door. The one who opened the door was Luo Qingchen's father. Hello, uncle. Mo Zhe Chun was surprised, but he immediately greeted him in a very polite manner. Luo Gudu came forward to take Mo Zhe Chen's hand and said in an excited voice, "It's Xiao Chun. Come in, come in." Mo Zhe Chun suddenly felt very nervous, a nervousness he had never felt before since he was young. Is Qing Chun here? Mo Zhe Chun. Luo Qingchen came down from the second floor and waved her hand at him. Here, here. Quick, 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 go out and play. It's hard enough to come on a vacation. What are you doing staying at home all day? Luo Gudu pushed Luo Qingchen while speaking in a traditional parenting tone. Luo Qingchen was pushed out the door with a stunned look before the door was closed with a pong sound. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she couldn't say anything. Please, she just came back to take a shower and change her clothes. It didn't take more than half an hour, all right? Uncle seems to, don't say it. Luo Qingchen shook her head in a proud manner. I won't listen, I won't listen. As soon as her voice fell, she walked out the door. Mo Zhe Chan followed behind her with a faint smile on his lips. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. The fireworks at the Marriott Villa was unprecedented. The young masters and young misses were all wearing high-class bathrobes and holding champagne in their hands as they sat on the glass table. Luo Qingchen looked around and didn't see Jiang Iliang or Pei Dan Dan. At this moment, they were having a difficult battle with the two Jiang family elders. Jiang Iliang, if you're certain you want to be with this woman, you're not allowed to take a single step into my Jiang family. Jiang Yibai crossed his hands, and his face was very ugly. Just now, Sunglasses had actually knocked on the door of Luo Gudu's hotel room, and had even brought a bottle of red wine. The two of them must have wanted to have a good chat after entering the room. At this time, whenever he thought about how his son insisted on being with that commoner's daughter, the anger in his heart would rise. He felt that he might be angered to death. This time, he would lose a lot of resources in the business circle of city. Father, uncle, please don't blame him. Pei Dan Dan tightly held Jiang Yiliang's hand as she looked at Jiang Yibai. We are truly in love. Jiang Yiliang looked down and didn't say a thing. His heart was too complicated. He didn't know how to make a decision or what to say. Good. From today onwards, I will stop using all your bank cards. Come back to me when you've thought it through. Jiang Yibai stood with his hands behind his back and left without looking back. Pei Dan Dan was a little stunned. She felt that she was about to lose a lot of things. For example, she had to take the public car to school. She couldn't go to high-class restaurants anymore. She couldn't wear expensive clothes anymore. She turned to look at Jiang Yiliang beside her. His eyes were a bit blurred, and he didn't come back to his senses for a while. Don't worry. Uncle might just be saying this in a fit of anger. Nothing will happen. Pei Dan Dan pursed her lips and said in a gentle voice, I will always be by your side. I will never leave. At least, you still have me. Chapter 1688. The Marriott Resort Villa lasted 3 days, and Luo Qingchen didn't see Jiang Yiliang and Pei Dan Dan for the next 2 days. It seemed like they had already gone back. They received a text from Ling Luo on the last day. She had just transferred to the Star Royal Academy and told Luo Qingchen that they would be in the same school. Luo Qingchen replied that there was a surprise that they would be in the same school. After coming back from the resort, the relationship between her and Mo Zhe Chun had improved. When she came back to school, he appeared in front of her as a new student. He was wearing the same couple uniform as her, shining in front of her. So handsome. I'm suddenly envious of being a student of Star Royal Academy. There really are many handsome guys. Why do I feel that he looks familiar? Wasn't he the one who took first place last month? Right. The son of the richest man in a city, Mr. Mo Jing Mo. Young Master Mo, I've decided. I want to change male gods. Come, everyone be quiet. Let's introduce a new student. The teacher looked at Mo Zay-chan with a smile, as she said with a bright smile, "He is a student who transferred from America." He nodded and politely introduced himself. "Hello, everyone. I am Mo Zay-chan." Pa, 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 pa. There was a round of applause. Then, everyone seemed to have an expectant look in their eyes, hoping that their idol would walk in their direction and become their desk mate. But they didn't know that his eyes were very firm as he walked over to the row closest to the window. He stopped in front of Luo Qingshun and didn't ask anything as he sat down next to her. "The villa is too far from the school, and there was a traffic jam for an hour. I wanted to pick you up." His voice wasn't soft or loud, but everyone in the class heard it clearly. "What is this situation? The new student and Luo Qingshun already know each other? It seems like it's like this. Normally speaking, shouldn't we ask first? Could it be that the rumors are false? It isn't that Jiang Yiliang doesn't want Luo Qingshun, but rather that Luo Qingshun has a new person? Be careful with your words. Whether it's the Mo family or the Luo family, you can't afford to offend them. Don't worry." Luo Qingshun's clear eyes trembled as she said, "There are a lot of empty houses near our house. My dad likes you so much that he can have as much as he wants." Luo Qingshun was very generous to show the hospitality of a host, with a proud smile on her face. She had wanted to be a good host to her and Ling Luo, but she had not expected such a thing to happen. Since young Master Mo had such a request, as the male lead, he naturally couldn't neglect it. But she didn't know that Mo Zay-chen's following words would make her words a joke. "Not for the time being, because Uncle Luo has promised me that in order to better cultivate the relationship between us, I'll stay at your house for this period of time." He turned his eyes, a pair of deep eyes flashing with a fine light. Luo Qingshun looked at him in a daze. She was smiling on the surface, but she was cursing in her heart. She felt like she had been sold by her dad. How could she break it? At the same time, at 8:30 in the morning, on the bus. On the crowded bus, two students wearing the Star Royal Academy uniform were struggling to squeeze onto the bus. Chapter 1689. It had been many months since she had taken the bus. Since she became Jiang Yiliang's girlfriend, the bus had automatically become a cheap form of transportation. She had a Porsche to and from school every day, and there were people looking at her with envious gazes every day. When a person experienced this kind of vanity, they wouldn't be able to adapt when they went back to their old days. Pei Dan had this feeling right now. It was like she had turned from a princess to a commoner. But she seemed to have forgotten that she was a commoner. "Why aren't we there yet? We're going to be late." She pursed her lips, feeling a bit anxious. "We should be there soon." Jiang Yiliang slightly knit his brows as his expression became ugly. This was his first time taking the bus in his life, and it really was for love. "Yiliang, did your car really get taken away by Uncle?" Pei Dan raised her eyebrows and asked tentatively, "Why don't you say something nice to Uncle? You're not used to it, right?" Jiang Yiliang's voice was a bit cold. Actually, he understood the meaning behind Pei Dan's words. He thought that he was taking all of this for love. But Pei Dan's words had made him fall into the abyss. "What do you mean?" It was probably because the bus was too crowded that she was a bit anxious, so her tone wasn't that good. "What I mean is that we're taking the bus here because of you and not because of me." His voice was a bit cold as the anger suppressed in his heart began to rise. Pei Dan heard this, and her eyes turned red. She sniffled and said in an aggrieved voice, "Isn't it for you? It's natural for someone of my status to take the bus, but you're different. I don't want you to suffer this grievance with me." As soon as her voice fell, the bus arrived. Her eyes were filled with tears as she got off the bus without looking back. Jiang Yiliang came back to his senses and followed behind her. Don't be angry." He softly took Pei Dan's hand and said, "I misunderstood you. I apologize. How can you think that I'm that kind of person? Sorry, I might have been too agitated." This was the first time they had argued. He didn't know why he had become like this. Could it be that he who insisted on marrying love was being defeated by reality? When he returned to the classroom, half of the class had already passed. Because of his identity, the teacher did not say much. But when Jiang Yiliang passed by Luo Qingshun, he found that there was someone else in the empty spot beside her. They seemed to be whispering something to each other with smiles on their faces. They did not look in his direction at all. In fact, they didn't even know that he had walked into the classroom. In the past, whenever he walked into the classroom, Luo Qingqian's eyes would always be on him. He seemed to be the focus of her life, and no one could replace him. But now, everything has changed. First, her attitude towards him had completely changed, followed by Mo Zhe Chen's sudden appearance. Everything happened so suddenly. Before he could react, he had already lost Luo Qingqian. He had also lost everything he had as a young master. He couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept it at all. He didn't believe that Luo Qingqian had completely disliked him. Perhaps she had given up purely because of his indifferent attitude. Chapter 1690. Luo Qingqian didn't notice Jiang Yiliang coming at all. She was discussing with Mo Zheqian about having hot pot tomorrow night. Moreover, they were calling Ling Luo, who was also in Star Royal. She heard Ling Luo say that she was a third-year student and wasn't in the same year as them, so she was still in the third year when she transferred. The previous host didn't know much about the third-year seniors of other schools, so naturally, she didn't have many memories. But she never thought that meeting Ling Luo would be related to Pei Dan Dan. On the internet, Ling Luo's voice didn't belong to a soft girl. Rather, it belonged to a mature girl. Luo Qingqian had never seen Ling Luo before and didn't have a picture of her. One afternoon, she planned on going home after going to the library, but she never thought that she would be stopped by a group of third-year seniors. The one leading them was a girl with purple and white hair who seemed like she had come out of the 2D world. Her first words were, "I heard that you're Pei Dan Dan's friend, so you should pay for her big brother's gambling debt." Luo Qingqian knit her brows. Although the other side's voice was deliberately rough, she still felt that it was very familiar. "She told you this?" Luo Qingqian gave a cold snort as she revealed a smile of disdain. "Yes, you really are a fool. What kind of status do I have that I need to help a commoner who doesn't belong here?" If she didn't know that Pei Dan Dan wasn't a saint like she thought, she really would have felt like an evil supporting female lead when she said this. Commoner noble. To be honest, she really didn't care. You mean that she lied to us? This matter started 4 months ago. Pei Dan Dan's big brother Pei Zhizhi borrowed 50,000 from her, saying that his little sister was in Star Royal and she had a rich boyfriend, so she could definitely pay it back. She lent 50,000 to Pei Dan Dan with 30% interest. She never thought that her big brother would take the money to Macau and lose it all, being chased after every day. They chased him to her house last night, and Pei Dan Dan said in an urgent situation, "Go find Luo Qingqian. She has money." For Pei Dan Dan, this was not an impulsive action. Instead, she finally found an outlet to vent the anger in her heart. She wanted to take off her Luo Qingqian and get into the water. If she could be beaten, it didn't seem like a bad thing. In the past, whenever she had such thoughts, she would always strictly criticize herself. Now, she actually felt that this idea was not bad. The group of people who lent the money to her brother was not short of money. The purple-haired girl in the lead was also the daughter of the Gu family, one of the 4 great families. Her hobby was fighting and causing trouble. Therefore, a hot-tempered person like Luo Qingqian would definitely explode in front of such a rich young lady. Haha. Luo Qingqian shrugged her shoulders, her voice carrying a trace of coldness as she said, "You're really stupid. Are you tired of living? Looking at your uniform, you're not from our school. Are you a transfer student?" Luo Qingqian narrowed her eyes and looked at the school card on her chest. It seems that the transfer procedures haven't been completed yet. Not bad, not bad. You've recruited a group of underlings so quickly. We transferred with Boss Luo. We didn't just get recruited. Don't change the topic. Hurry up and pay back the money. I have an appointment tonight. I don't have time to waste with you. The person seemed to be angry and had an aura of wanting to fight. Chapter 1691. Luo Qingqian never thought that she would meet Ling Luo in this kind of situation. It seemed like fate wasn't shallow. What nonsense are you saying, father and little Qing? After saying this, she paused before saying, I brought you to King's not long ago and you've already forgotten? Luo Qingqian gave a soft laugh, not planning on hiding her identity. Ling Luo's arrogant look turned into a stunned look. She never thought that she would meet Luo Qingshun in this kind of situation. 7:30 at night. Shangji hot pot. Eating hot pot in the beginning of winter was very satisfying. She liked eating crab meat and meatballs, but Mo Zaichun seemed to like vegetables. During this time, he didn't forget to give Luo Qingshun some food. Looking at the way she pursed her lips and smiled, his heart was also very happy. Strangely happy. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Completion rate is now 40%. Ling Luo, on the other hand, placed plate after plate of beef into the bowl and ate happily. AI, Ching, according to what you said, isn't Pei Dan Jiang Iliang's girlfriend? Ling Luo ate the beef as she said. He can't even pay his girlfriend's loan. Luo Qingchen heard this and raised a brow. I'm guessing that Pei Dan didn't tell Jiang Iliang about this. After all, she was a very proud girl, and her status wasn't good enough for Jiang Iliang. If there was any talk of loan sharks, her image in the eyes of the Jiang family would plummet. I've heard that Uncle Jiang has already stopped all his cards. Mo Zaichun elegantly ate the vegetables as he said this. I didn't just hear this before. Ling Luo looked at Luo Qingshun with a deep gaze before saying with a smile, young Master Jiang abandoned his fiancée and chose the commoner Cinderella? Fiancé. When Mo Zaichun, who had an indifferent look, heard these 3 words, a dark glow flashed in his deep eyes. Luo Qingshun shook her head seriously. Then, she cleared her throat and changed the topic. You're not from our school. The news you heard must be inaccurate. Not accurate, Mo Zaichun kept asking back. He had investigated Jiang Iliang and knew about his relationship with Luo Qingshun, but he didn't know if Jiang Iliang was qualified to turn back. After all, he was back. Ling Luo hurriedly said, calm down. I have an idea. Since Pei Dan likes to play this kind of trick, why don't we put on a show? Luo Qingshun and Mo Zaichun looked at each other before Ling Luo came up with her plan. The next morning at the Star Royal Academy's flag-raising ceremony, at this solemn moment, Ling Luo led her little sisters in and loudly shouted, that Luo Qingshun, come out for this old lady. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Luo Qingshun. Ling Luo, standing not far away, had a look of panic in her eyes. This person, why was she wearing the Star Capital College uniform? Wasn't she a delinquent girl who was a loan shark? When the surrounding students saw this, they all started to whisper in unison, looking as if they wanted to watch a good show and didn't mind blowing things up. This girl looks a bit familiar. She seemed to be very famous at the noble school next door. She looks like a delinquent girl. Can she go to a noble school? Chapter 1692. The man lowered his head silently, and Pei Dan, who was standing at the side, heard the entire sentence. At that moment, her mind went blank. It was like a mask was about to be ripped off in front of everyone. Jiang Iliang casually looked in Luo Qingshun's direction. Mo Zaichun didn't immediately come to her side, but rather his eyes fell onto him. Was this a chance for him? If he helped Luo Qingshun now, perhaps he could awaken her old love. There had been a complicated feeling in his heart recently. It was probably because of the bus ride and the cafeteria food. He couldn't take his current life. What do you want to do? He didn't hesitate as he slowly walked towards Luo Qingshun with his hands in his pocket. Luo Qingshun and Ling Luo were both stunned. They never expected this at all. Mo Zaichun narrowed his eyes, and his beautiful eyes released a dangerous glow like the stars. Ling Luo was a flexible person, so she immediately followed the plan. What? You all want to stand up for the commoner? Commoner? Jiang Iliang asked back before saying, do you know who she is? At this moment, Pei Dan, standing not far away, had a pale face. She wanted to reach out to grab Jiang Iliang's sleeve, but she found that it was empty. She couldn't help moving back, wanting to leave this place. I don't know. Ling Luo pretended to be angry as she pursed her lips. I only know that Pei Dan told me that her brother borrowed 50,000 from me, and Luo Qingshun paid it back for him. Hiss! At this moment, All the students sucked in a breath of cold air and turned to look at Pei Dan Dan, who was about to turn around and leave. They all looked at her with looks of disdain. Everyone knew about the relationship between Pei Dan Dan and Luo Qingchen. How could she let Luo Qingchen pay back the money she owed? Moreover, their family was actually borrowing money. I really don't know what right a person of such status has to stay in Constellation. Jiang Iliang trembled as his eyes fell onto Pei Dan Dan. He tightly knit his brows with a bit of disgust. It was as if at this moment, Pei Dan Dan's shaky image in his heart had collapsed. You're talking nonsense. Pei Dan Dan bit her lips and looked at Ling Luo. I've never said anything about Luo Qingchen. Don't slander me. She was a smart person, so she naturally knew what had to be clarified at this time. She had always been a kind girl in Jiang Iliang's heart. Her character couldn't collapse. It definitely couldn't collapse. Oh, so you mean that you don't need her to help you pay your debt? Ling Luo shrugged and walked towards her step by step. It's only right to repay a debt. 50,000. I'm already being very kind to a commoner like you by not charging you interest. Luo Qingchen put her hands in her pockets and didn't say a word. There was a faint look in her eyes, like she was watching a play of the year. You a loan shark? Jiang Iliang knit his brows and softly said, Didn't you say that your parents were working class? Chapter 1693. When she finished speaking, her eyes were filled with coldness and even a hint of hatred. This was her first time feeling how helpless it was to have no status, no money, and no power. It would make it hard for you to move. It would make you the target of everyone. Z. Ling Luo's eyes turned frivolous as she grabbed her hair. That day when I asked your big brother for money in that broken cottage, you didn't say this. I remember that you said the most back then was go find Luo Qingchen. She has wronged me. She has money. Actually, Ling Luo's words were half false and half true, pushing Pei Dan Dan to the center of the storm. After all, she was a part of society, and there wasn't that big of a difference between a pure white lotus. It was just a single thought. You really said this? At this moment, Jiang Iliang's eyes were filled with rage. He never thought that the spotless Pei Dan Dan in his mind would say something like this. This was completely different from the love he wanted. I didn't. Pei Dan Dan's eyes turned red as she bit her lip while being pulled by Ling Luo. I just wanted her to find Luo Qingchen. I didn't say that she wronged me. She really didn't say the latter. How could she wrong her like this? Let go. Jiang Iliang came forward and pulled Ling Luo's hand out of Pei Dan Dan's hair before looking at her. I'll pay back the 50,000 for her. Young Miss Gu, right? My Jiang family has business with your Gu family. So a trivial 50,000. You can't not give me face, right? Although Jiang Iliang's heart was filled with anger, Pei Dan Dan was still his girlfriend. She was being bullied in front of everyone. He didn't have any face. Cool. At this time, Mo Zaichun, who had silently walked to Luo Qingchen's side, looked at Jiang Iliang before his eyes fell onto Pei Dan Dan. His lips curled into a cold smile as he said, Then the question is, you're being chased for debt. Why did you have them find Qingchen? Mo Zaichun's simple words pulled back the topic that was about to be changed. The surrounding students seemed to have just come to a realization and immediately turned their attention to Pei Dan Dan. F***CK. How shameless. What a poor little white flower. There was a period of time when I thought that Luo Qingchen was a little too harsh on her. Now it seems that this so-called Mother of God is just a little white flower who knows how to play tricks. You're right. Damn was so disgusting. At least other people hated her openly, but she did it secretly. If that Misgu didn't appear here, but blocked Luo Qingchen in some alley, who knows what would have happened? These people have always been unreasonable. It's so disgusting. I really don't know what the school hunk sees in her. You should know that commoners are the kind of people who have gone mad from poverty. Doing some despicable things is nothing in their eyes. Every word that came from around her was like a sharp sword, piercing her heart bit by bit. What did she do wrong to deserve this kind of treatment? Why? Why did she have to be born in such a family? Why didn't she have what Luo Qingchen had? Chapter 1694. Actually, each time she stuck close to Jiang Iliang, and Jiang Iliang was fierce to her, there was a strange pleasure in her heart. But this kind of pleasure, recently, she couldn't feel it anymore. System notification. The supporting female lead's personality has undergone a shocking reversal. The world is collapsing. World collapsing, what did that mean? All right, young Master Jiang, I believe you. Ling Luo gave a shrug as she crossed her arms. But I really don't agree with your eyes. Me too. +1. +10086. The surrounding students didn't forget to agree, but the teachers and directors didn't dare say a word. This was a city, the first time the four great families were all in the same frame. It's over. All. Of? No. Up. After everyone left, Jiang Iliang made a call before pulling Pei Dan Dan out of the school. Young master, this is your car. At the school gate, the housekeeper respectfully came over and gave him the car keys. He nodded before saying to Pei Dan Dan behind him, get in the car. We're going for lunch. On the way, Pei Dan Dan rubbed her hands together as she kept crying. But this time, Jiang Iliang didn't say a word. In a Mediterranean-style high-class restaurant, there was expensive food on the table. He had ordered close to 10,000 yuan for this meal. Why did we come to such an expensive restaurant? Pei Dan Dan felt a bit unsettled as she said with sparkling eyes, we can just eat on the side of the road. I want to explain it to you. Is it expensive? Jiang Iliang elegantly ate his steak as a cold look flashed in his eyes. I used to eat this every day. Iliang, it's been hard on you these past few days. Pei Dan Dan wanted to say something, but Jiang Iliang cut her off. It won't happen again. Hearing this, Pei Dan Dan let out a sigh of relief. She looked at him with teary eyes and said, thank you for trusting me. I don't trust you. He looked up and slightly knit his brows. Let's break up. When Jiang Iliang said these words, Pei Dan Dan was stunned. It wasn't that she didn't think of this possibility, she just didn't dare believe that Jiang Iliang had the heart to say it and didn't want her. After all, he used to protect her. You really want to break up, right? She gritted her teeth and said, there are many people in school who like me. You know that. Yes. He nodded and said, that's good. Actually, he wasn't completely willing. However, what Pei Dan Dan had done had already violated his belief in love. He could squeeze into the bus for her. He could eat in the school cafeteria for her. He was someone who could live for love. But the Pei Dan Dan he saw today was not such a girl. She had changed so thoroughly. In the past, she disdained to do things, but now she was doing them so skillfully. This was not his girl. Jiang Iliang. Pei Dan Dan tightly pursed her lips and poured the red wine in her right hand onto his face as she angrily said, you will regret this. I won't turn back. I don't think I need you to turn back. Jiang Iliang wasn't angry and wiped his face with the towel beside him. He looked at her and said, I feel that my fiancé is quite good. Luo Qingshun. Chapter 1695. 8:30 at night, at Ling Luo's high-class private club. She had taken off her delinquent clothes and was wearing a long black dress, looking very elegant. Mo Zai-chun gave a slight nod. As expected, clothes make the man. Cuckoo, you can't be like this. Ling Luo cleared her throat. I even gave the great ADC Qingchun to you. He was mine to begin with. Mo Zai-chun suddenly said this as a gentle look appeared in his eyes. Luo Qingchun was stunned. Hearing him say this so decisively, her face couldn't help blushing. She didn't completely understand Mo Zai-chun's personality. He wasn't cold or bright. It was a mysterious area between the two, and the more mysterious it was, the more people wanted to explore it. Zai shameless. Ling Luo gave a snort of disdain. She came over with a bottle of 88 brandy. You did something big today, why don't you? Have a drink with us? Mo Zai-chun took the glass, and his lips curled into a faint curve. It has to be said, your acting skills are quite good. He didn't give Pei Dan Dan a chance to explain from beginning to end, letting her reveal her true nature. It was a complete and overwhelming victory. He poured a bit of wine for Luo Qingshun and didn't forget to gently say, you can't drink too much. I have a good tolerance for alcohol. She drank it all, and the blush on her face spread to her ears. Mo Zai-chun saw her cute appearance, and his heart strangely skipped a beat. But he deliberately teased her. A girl who can drink too much doesn't make people's heart ache. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 50%. Since he suddenly added favorable impression points to her, it seemed like he was going against his heart. Luo Qingshan looked up and replied, so a girl who is too powerful doesn't make people like her. That depends on who it is. Mo Zai-chun took a sip of red wine. If it's Ling Luo, my answer is yes. If it's you, my answer is no. Mo Zai-chun's casual words had really touched her. Moreover, he had used the special method of comparison to seduce her. Of course, Ling Luo, who had offered the wine but was still ridiculed, was not willing to do so. Mo Zai-chun, you've gone too far. Ling Luo looked at him arrogantly and said, you have to consider the occasion to show off your love. Can't you see that there are other people here? Mo Zai-chun's response made her speechless. You're one of us. It had to be said that his EQ was off the charts. He was indeed an American professor. She wondered why he wanted to come back to study in his second year of high school. It felt like the 100-star king was killing the stubborn bronze king. Ah! Ling Luo shouted a few times, but found that it was useless. Then, he changed the topic and said, by the way, have you heard? Jiang Yiliang and Pei Dan broke up this afternoon. Luo Qingshan couldn't help but frown. She suddenly remembered what the system had told her in the afternoon. What did the plane collapse mean? Even if Pei Dan's personality had changed, it shouldn't be this serious. Then again, what would happen if the plane collapsed? Plane collapse means that there are cracks in the plane's space, allowing existences outside the space to enter the space. Chapter 1696. The system's explanation wasn't easy to understand. She felt that there were many mysteries in it, and it wasn't something she could understand in the world she came into contact with. After all, there had never been a single world that had collapsed in the past. When she asked the system again, the system had already pretended to be dead. Furthermore, he ended the story abruptly with a sentence. System notification. The male lead is observing you. Mo Zai-chun saw her slightly knit brows, and his heart suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. What is it? Mo Zai-chun looked over with a faint sparkle in his deep eyes. Do you still care about him? He knew what happened between Luo Qingshan and Jiang Yiliang before, but he felt that the current her shouldn't like Jiang Yiliang anymore. Luo Qingshan was surprised, instantly understanding Mo Zai-chun's slightly jealous tone. He asked this in a roundabout manner, wanting to know the answer from her expression. But Luo Qingshan felt that this was too troublesome. Since she was his person and had 50% affection, it shouldn't be a problem for her daughter to tease him a bit. Right. She took the red wine from the stunned Ling Luo's hand and poured half a glass for herself before softly touching Mo Zai-chun's glass. I care about you. Damn. Ling Luo suddenly understood what was going on between the two of them. One was jealous. One was responding. And the feeling it gave people was that they were a match. Ding. Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. Mo Zai-chun looked at her and said the words that he wanted to hear the most. He had a feeling that the person he cared about was getting closer and closer to him. His heart was filled with waves, and he was incomparably excited. But he had to look very calm on the surface. His deep as the sea eyes seriously looked at her as he softly said, so, should I apologize for misunderstanding you, or should I confess? She was a bit surprised and couldn't help feeling a bit nervous when she heard this. Ling Luo took a long time to react to the meaning of Mo Zai-chun's words and spread her hands. Enough. This is my private club, but young Miss Luo hasn't answered my question yet. Mo Zai-chun kept pressing as a faint sparkle appeared in his deep eyes. Luo Qingshan couldn't help but chuckle. She raised her eyes and said, confess. I like you. Mo Chinza looked at her blushing face and said these words seriously, as if there was no one else around. Mo Zai-chun. Ling Luo angrily roared. She wanted to say something, but Mo Zay Chun decisively cut her off. Oh, by the way, you could be a witness. Is this a F asterisk king confession or a proposal? If I can propose, I'm very willing. Mo Zay Chin's beautiful eyes had a warm glow as he revealed a smile. I'm not willing. Luo Qingchun snorted softly and proudly. Balloons, wedding dress, rings, and roses are all gone. How can you propose? I have a ring. Mo Zay Chin's eyes relaxed, and there was a smile that was hard to hide on his lips. The next second, he took out an exquisite box from his coat pocket. Inside, it was a Cartier diamond ring. For someone with such a high EQ, a diamond ring was a necessity when deciding on someone. Damn, so handsome. When Ling Luo saw Mo Zay Chun take out the ring, she was completely stunned. Chapter 1697. Luo Qingchen never thought that Mo Zay Chun would carry a diamond ring with him, and it would be such an expensive one. It had to be said, how meticulous was his mind to make this kind of preparation. I accept the confession. She pursed her lips into a faint smile, but if it's a proposal, you have to prepare everything. All right, Mo Zay Chun said with a nod. Whatever you say is right. Ling Luo's mouth was filled with dog food, but she didn't know why she was very happy. The next morning, Luo Qingchen wasn't woken up by the alarm clock, but rather by her phone ringing. The number displayed on the phone surprised her. It was actually Jiang Yiliang. Because Jiang Yiliang had never called her before, she didn't change the note that the previous host had set. The person I've been thinking of. After being stunned for 10 seconds, she remembered this note from the previous host's memories and knew that the other side was Jiang Yiliang. Because it had been a long time, she hung up. She had already said what she needed to say. She actually didn't have anything else to say to Jiang Yiliang. After all, she had said in the beginning that she wished this infatuated man and woman 100 years of happiness. But she didn't understand. With this kind of thought, it could actually distort the supporting female lead's personality and cause the world to collapse. She couldn't understand it at all. Ding-ling. The phone rang again. Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows and turned it off. But she didn't know that when she went downstairs, she would see that familiar Portia and that familiar figure. Why didn't you answer the phone? Jiang Yiliang's voice wasn't gentle, but it wasn't as cold as before. This was someone who had always stuck to him. It seemed like it was hard for him to suddenly speak to her in a soft voice. Luo Qingchun knit her brows. Hearing this tone early in the morning, she had the urge to hit someone. It wasn't very pleasant. Ha. She snorted 3 times in a row and walked toward her garage without looking back. Jiang Yiliang was surprised, feeling like he was being ignored. In the past, he had paid Dan by his side. He could accept that Luo Qingchun was angry with him. But now that there was no woman by his side, why was she still pretending to be reserved? Luo Qingchun. Jiang Yiliang angrily roared out as he watched her leave. Let's go to school together. TSK. She narrowed her cold eyes and didn't turn around. Instead, she slowly raised her right hand and gestured with 2 fingers. I'll just say 2 things. 1, don't appear in front of me. I'm afraid my boyfriend will care. 2, even if we meet in school, please don't call me by my name, and don't even call me by my full name. She really didn't know if Jiang Yiliang was really dumb or acting dumb. Now he wanted to chase this treasure. Was there a problem with his head? Jiang Yiliang's heart was filled with rage. Originally, he thought that he would give her endless surprises as soon as he came to pick her up. He thought that he would instantly make her change her mind and throw her into his arms. But he didn't expect to hit a wall again. At this moment, there was no one around them. That meant that Luo Qingchun's attitude towards him wasn't for anything else. It was just because she hated him. Could it be that she really didn't like him? Could it be that she really hated him? Could it be that she really wouldn't turn back? Chapter 1698. Hello, dear. Luo Qingchun immediately showed off her love when she picked up the call. Seeing Jiang Yiliang's livid face, she couldn't help feeling a bit of pleasure. Not long ago, he had been like this to the previous host, not showing any pity at all. Mo Zaychen replied without any hesitation. I'm here. Walk 100 meters in front of you and turn right. I'll wait for you at the corner. She wanted to show off her love, but she never thought that she didn't need to force it. All right, I'll head over now. Luo Qingshan walked forward, not forgetting to ask, how did you know that I... Binoculars. She suddenly felt that not only was Mo Zhe Chen's EQ high, he was also quite talented in being black-bellied. No matter what it was, he could always think of it ahead of time. This shouldn't be as simple as Plan B. It should be Plan ABCD. A silver-gray Maserati. Mo Zhe Chen had changed his car, and there was a large bag of luggage in the back seat. Are you going to school or going on a long trip? Luo Qingshan sat in the front passenger seat, pointing at the luggage behind her as she asked this. The other side raised a brow as his lips curled into a smile with a deeper meaning. School first, then a long trip. I've already told Uncle that I'll be staying at your house tonight. Luo Qingshan said, You've already agreed on this. It's very important for an elder to be happy, Mo Zhe Chen said with a faint smile. Uncle is very happy. As soon as his voice fell, he turned the steering wheel and drove in the opposite direction of school. When Luo Qing wanted to ask why, she instantly understood. It had to be said, Mo Zhe Chen was indeed a black-bellied person, because he could have gone straight to school, but he took a large detour. It was to pass by Jiang Iliang. Of course, when Jiang Iliang saw Mo Zhe Chen's car pass by him, his face turned livid. Mo Zhe Chen's driving skills were very good, so he arrived at school in less than 10 minutes. The first 2 classes in the morning were rather boring, but the 3rd and 4th classes were important classes. United States Mr. Tom, a very famous math Olympiad professor from Vegas, came to Star Capital Academy and organized a math Olympiad competition with a prize of $100,000. All the students of the Starry School could participate, and the one who entered the last round would receive all the prizes. There could only be one winner. Last year, Constellation had organized a similar event. However, the prize money wasn't $100,000. Instead, it was a 7-day tour of the Maldives. In the end, the champion of the Mathematical Olympiad last year was Pei Dan Dan, who was recognized by the Starry School as the top student. It was said that last year, she sold 7-day tour tickets to the Maldives to a student from the same college in exchange for more than $10,000 to pay for miscellaneous expenses. After all, the Starry School had only waived her school fees. She still had to pay for her school uniform. A set of school uniforms cost 5,000 yuan. 10,000 yuan was just enough to buy 2 sets. Beep, beep, beep. Luo Qingshan heard a notification from QQ. She opened it and saw that it was a discussion group. Ling Luo, I'm going to sign up for the Mathematical Olympiad. I'm annoyed when I see Pei Dan Dan. I want to get rid of her. Shunja, are you sure she wasn't killed by him? Ling Luo, Aya, don't I still have you? Smile. Shunja, Tom is my student. He shouldn't agree if I participate. Little fairy Ching Ching. Equals? Smiley face. Are you sure he's a student and not a teacher? Ling Luo, same. Shunja, although he's 30 years older than me, he is indeed my student.